Hello, listeners, and welcome to episode 13 of the Avocado Gamescast, the Avocado's gaming podcast. I'm Merve, and we are approaching the end of 2016. That means it's time to take a look back on the year that was. We'll be discussing some of the bigger gaming news stories of 2016 and some of the other ones that we found interesting, before moving on to talk about our favorite games of the year. But before that, let us meet the fine folks who are joining me today. First up, he eats Xbox for breakfast, Wii U for lunch, and PlayStation for dinner. It's Ben.
Good morning, everyone.
Next, with a name like his, an appointment as director of the NSF might be in his future. It's Science is Bad.
Video games are science. Hello.
And finally, he's just relieved we're not talking about Pokemon this week. It's the Kappa.
Yeah, somehow we're going to end up talking about it. I know we are, so...
Well, Sun and Moon did come out this year.
Be prepared for me to zone out a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So how are you guys all doing?
Great.
Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, glad to hear it.
Feels like I'm finally coming back. It's been a couple weeks, I know, since I've been on here.
Yeah, it's been a while since people have heard your
Oh,
dulcet
God.
tones.
Yeah, that's not what I would call them.
That's how you characterize your voice. Fair enough. So, let's just dive right into it. A lot of stuff happened this year in the world of gaming.
Oh boy,
Some
yeah.
good stuff, some bad stuff. As usual, a lot of bad stuff because it's the games industry, and the games industry is the worst. But as an example of that, let's start with something that's actually unfolding right now. Crytek is kind of imploding right now. So there are reports that employees haven't been getting paid, just like what happened back in 2014. Many have apparently left the company to go work at other studios, such as Cloud Imperium, the guys who are making Star Citizen. And as I alluded to earlier, they had these similar problems back in 2014. Then they're rescued from the brink by selling their Homefront property and licensing their engine to Amazon. But now they have nothing left to license or sell. So they're in a pretty bad place right now. And I would not be surprised if a few months from now, in 2017, Crytek just up and folded. Have you guys been following this saga at all?
Yeah, I have. One of the things about Crytek that really, where they come from, obviously, is, they used to just license their engine out a lot, right? And then they started to kind of get into game design. I'm wondering if they're not thinking about going back the way maybe of id did and doing, one or two games every couple years, but then just sticking to making a good license engine. But following the story, it's really weird. I was reading around a lot online. They're based out of, is it Germany?
Yeah,
Czech Republic?
Coburg, Germany.
Yeah, and I guess maybe there it's a little bit
Wikipedia.
more common to not receive your paycheck, except for, like on a monthly basis. But yeah, it seems like, the first time somebody didn't pay me, I would probably be looking for another job. But apparently this is the second or third time this has happened there.
Man.
Yeah, like I said, it happened back in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's happening repeatedly at a company, they must not be in good shape.
Oh, I think that what's really sad about all of this is that this isn't like a unique thing to one company. It's happening very frequently in video games, and that's kind of a bummer. Seeing it over and over again with, people like having crunch times and getting fired, not getting paid. Like this is a real bummer, especially around Christmas.
Yeah, from my perspective, though, I can't think of many Crytek games that I absolutely loved. I mean, can you guys think of any, like... I mean, Crysis...
games they've made, and I have not heard of a single game they've put out since Rise Son of Rome, and there are 5 on this list.
Yeah, and Rise was more of a tech demo than it was a game. I don't know if you guys ever played Rise. It was an Xbox One release title.
I played it. I thought it was good for a release title. Let's put it
me
that
too.
Way, but
me too, but I wouldn't. If it came out today, I wouldn't buy it.
It came out on PC, but I didn't pull the trigger. I was like, I'm not gonna buy that.
When you played,
I didn't touch it.
When you played it, did you mind the QTEs or not?
I actually thought the QTEs were done really interestingly, like, because it has the thing where you can't fail the QTEs, and
Right.
everyone was calling bullshit on that. But how it worked was basically, you set yourself to have either you'd get rewarded with health, money, or two other bullshit things that I can't remember, and how well you did in the QTEs would be like how much health you got back. So it was like how you had to survive doing fights was doing well in the QTEs, which I thought was an interesting concept, but
Yeah, because the way they
the game
did the
just wasn't that great.
The way they did the QTEs, I actually really liked. That was one thing I would mention that they did that they were smart about because, like you said, you can't fail at number one. But number two, it's really just about how well you do on the QTEs, how big your bonus is, whether it's the health or XP or gold or whatever, like you were saying. So it was a pretty well implemented system of QTEs, but the game itself looked great. But man, was it? I mean, it was just the plot of Gladiator almost.
No.
Crisises, I never really got into Crisis. That Homefront Revolution game, they pushed that out the door completely broken from what I heard.
Yeah,
That wasn't
like I
even
said, they sold it off,
Crytek at the end,
so it wasn't
was it?
even them putting it out. It was Deep Silver in the end that put it out, and it was another studio that finished it up.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even theirs in the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's actually what they had to sell off.
Dimebuster Studio is who made that. I've never even heard of them before.
No, me either.
Okay, they've made one game and it's Homefront the Revolution.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's been-
Crysis
Sorry, go
games
ahead.
were Crysis games were pretty good, and I really enjoyed the first one. I know a lot of people that enjoyed the second Crysis, but when I played the second Crysis, I was like, okay, they're like making a more straightforward Far Cry, and that's not what I liked in Crysis 1. So
Yeah, the other thing is, basically since Crisis 3, they haven't had any terribly well-received games. I mean, Warface kind of flopped, possibly because it has
know
the
what that
worst
is.
name of any shooter ever.
Mhm.
And then, as Ben pointed out, since then, it's just a bunch of games that nobody's heard of. And I don't think there's been massive financial success from these games.
Well, Warface was their experiment moving towards a free-to-play model that basically became buy to win. Or pay to win, right? I only followed Warface for a little bit. I think they were pitching it as like an esports, type thing or whatever, and it was going to be free to play, and your characters were going to level up kind of dynamically and things like that. And then it turned out that they basically just made it another pay to win shooter that's very generic in every way.
Okay, so I have to point out, I'm looking up Warface now. I've literally never seen this game before, and I, spend a lot of time looking at game news.
Yeah, the
I
only
have
reason I heard about it is
never
because people were
fucking
making
heard
fun
of
of how bad its name was.
I mean, I think I tuned out when people say free to play. I kind of tune out. That's not my style of game.
Yeah, the reason I know of Warface is I'm not sure it was the first, but it was one of the first where you buy boxes, like how Overwatch does it and a bunch of other games now do it. It was one of the initial, you don't buy, because if you guys remember the original Call of Duties and, a lot of the microtransactions and shooters, it was, give us $1.99 for this gun. What Warface did was give us $1.99 for a chance at this gun, along with other things.
How is that not gambling?
It is. And, actually, I don't know if this is going to come up in our news, but China has basically said if you're going to sell these kind of boxes, you need to put what percentage of chance of drop rates they have for these types of things. So if China's doing that, you can expect it to catch on here, too.
Very interesting.
And how fucked up is it when China is leading in consumer protection?
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a really good idea, though. I mean, it really is one of those things because I don't know how much you guys have played Overwatch. I really do enjoy it, but man, you could dump a lot of money chasing a lot of boxes. I think they fixed it since the Halloween update, where now if you buy a Halloween box, you always get at least one Halloween drop and things like that. But a lot of other games now that are doing this box loot thing, it feels very much like they're tapping into that, just one more dollar, just one more gamble, and I can finally get this thing I've been after.
Yeah, but Overwatch is a little bit of an outlier because in most of these games, the thing you're getting from the box is important to the gameplay, I think. And in Overwatch is mostly just skins
Right.
cosmetic stuff. So you're less like, you're not so hell bent on getting the stuff that's inside. Some people really like that, but I know a lot of people that play Overwatch and don't care about that stuff at all. So
I know Killer Instinct introduced that this year, and it's pretty much the same. It's nothing like gameplay important for the multiplayer. It's only for their weird new single player mode.
Speaking of other things that other studios have kind of imploded this year, or not really financially imploded, but based on critical reception to their game, Hello Games received a lot of flack this year for the state in which No Man's Sky released and their subsequent lack of communication about it. I know we talked about this a bit on the podcast before, but just to review what happened, No Man's Sky was released earlier this year in the fall to, let's say, mixed reception. Some people were okay with the game, and many people were very angry with what they perceived to be misleading marketing from Hello Games. And to be fair, I think it was at least somewhat misleading. They were trying to sell the game with a trailer that was not representative of the final product, in addition to some other untruths, let's call them, from studio head Sean Murray. So yeah, that led to a lot of post-launch anger on part of the players, and compounding that, Hello Games went completely silent after the release, basically became completely inactive on social media. They, I think last week, put out a patch that resolved some of the issues with the game, and now some players are slowly trickling back in. But overall, No Man's Sky has sort of been seen as a major flop, considering how much it was hyped after E3 last year. It's almost tragic to see what the final product was and how it's been received.
Yeah, the weirdest thing about all of this, because there's a lot of weird things that happen with No Man's Sky, but the one that really bothered me the most was, like, I think I remember somebody from Sony saying something bad about the game, like, oh, it's a small indie game, it's not AAA. Of course they have problems with some PR and something like that, so, like, putting them a little bit on blast, which was very strange, because I thought they were like, Sony was helping No Man's Sky come out or something. So
yeah,
it was kind of weird.
A heavy promotional push for it at the very
Yeah.
least.
Yeah, like, if Sony threw them under the bus with PR, because Sony was the one handling all their PR, so that's kind of a dick move.
Yeah, so Sony throwing them under the bus was really surprising, especially because of their E3 presence. That E3, I think somebody could probably go back and really dissect that, but they had them come out during the Sony presentation, and he loaded up this, what later would turn out to be completely pre-shot and pre-rendered stuff, but he made it seem like, oh, I'm just going to pick a random planet and go to it and see what happens there.
Didn't he say at the time, I remember him saying this was a specially constructed planet to show what was possible in the engine, because it's randomly generated, we couldn't guarantee just from normal gameplay or something.
He did a real big lead up to it, like, I don't know, this could be anything. This could be a boring planet with just some crystals on it, and it happens, just so happens it's the greatest planet that's in the game ever. They go back into the files on PC and they find out that that's all was pre-recorded for E3. That whole presentation is in the game. They left the files in. But
yeah, have you guys watched that part again lately? I haven't seen that part of the press conference lately.
I rewatched it. I think maybe the best thing to come out of No Man's Sky has been the No Man's Sky subreddit on Reddit to read. I mean, it has just been, to see how excited people were about this game and the deflation. And then, you kind of go through, all those stages, you got the bargaining and the grief and everything. You can go through that with that subreddit and just see, people are like, oh, it's not that bad, it's not that bad. And then somebody comes along and is like, wait, here's everything we were promised. Here's what's in this game. And here's all the ways he lied to us. And he laid it out in a post that was just one after another lie. But what I was getting back to with at E3 was I don't think Sony lets anybody go up on stage at E3 and just show whatever they want, right? Someone at Sony looked at that and was like, yeah, sure, run with that. And so I don't think Sony gets off scot-free and saying, oh, there was just some indie studio kind of doing what they want. They had money behind this whole thing.
Sony had to know what the game was. Like, there's no way, because Sony funded the game, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, they provided at least some funding for it. At least promotional push.
That means that the developers would be having to meet goals. They'd be having to show Sony what they're producing. Like, that's how that shit works if you're a publisher. So,
well, I'm
Sony
not
would
quite
know
sure
what this
if
game is.
I'm not quite sure if because I'm sure they put some money in for like marketing, but I'm not quite sure if they put any money in development. So I don't know if they had to like tell them what they were actually doing like day to day. Just like, oh, okay, we basically have this concept and this is our game. What do you think about it? And Sony probably was like, oh yeah, that seems cool. I think we want to promote that on like from our side. So maybe that was
to confirm. Sony actually offered to provide development funding. Hello Games declined and only requested financial assistance for promotion and publication, according to Wikipedia.
Yeah. That's wow. But even like with this latest patch, from everything I've been reading, I steer clear of the game. Like I said, I think last time we talked about this had Spore written all over it,
Oh yeah.
But I've even been reading that with this latest patch, it's adding in features that people don't really want. It's adding in like a base building thing, but people are saying, this is a game built around exploration. What's the point of building a base that I'm never going to go back to, because there's so many pre-generated planets and things like that. People talked about the ending, or I should say ending in air quotes, of the game, just being reach the center and then the game just basically resets and sends you right back out, to the universe. A lot of problems with that game, and I can't say I don't really kind of enjoy reading about it because I do. But that 90 days of silence to me, out of all the issues with No Man's Sky, that 90 days where they didn't tell anybody anything about that game other than his account getting hacked. Do you guys remember reading about that?
Yeah, and No Man's Sky was a mistake.
Yeah. I don't even know if that's real or not.
That's the funniest hack of any Twitter account I've seen in a long time.
And he also uses his Twitter is the game Twitter and his own personal Twitter, which again, pretty dumb. But yeah, that to me, that 90 days where they went silent to me was the biggest issue in the whole thing.
Okay, I did get No Man's Sky, but I wasn't really that excited for it. I just bought it on a whim and scum. But I thought it was fine. I liked it. Like, I had a good time with it. I think a lot of people, because when it initially got announced, they said it was procedurally generated, right?
Yeah.
And I think anyone that knows what that means, that should have set their expectations at a sufficiently low level for what they were getting, because, like, obviously you see that shit, it's not procedurally generated. If you know what procedural generation is, like, it doesn't make that shit, ever.
Yeah, so, more often than not, it just makes, like, a non-functioning blob of hands and arms and feet.
I actually think what they pulled off with the procedural generation is kind of amazing. I've never seen a game that does procedural generation that has that level of fidelity. Because there are, like you said, the whole thing is about exploring. The base building isn't like that. It's a dumb thing. But when you play it and you find, like, occasionally you find a planet that just looks amazing and you don't want to, like, leave and ignore that and go through, like, 4,000 more planets of dirt. So, like, having a base that you can go back to there is cool. Like, I haven't actually played the new patch because my copy of it got stolen when we got robbed, which kind of sucks. But, yeah, I think it was a fine game. Although, the 90 Days of Silence is bullshit. There's no way to defend that. That is just wrong.
When I saw it on during E3, I thought like, okay, obviously it won't look like that. I know what procedural generation is, but I was also like, oh, this kind of looks like Spore, and I kind of liked Spore. The thing I liked about Spore though, which I thought like. Spore didn't have much like procedural generation. It was just like content that was downloaded
User-created,
from
wasn't it?
user created content that was downloaded from like a shared
Shared server, yeah.
shared server, yeah. And that's like what I would say that is missing from No Man's Sky, because when procedural generation often means like blandness, because you don't want it to be extreme in any way, because it will screw up the program and you will have some really screwed up things coming out of it, like hands monsters and weird shit like that. So you want to make more or less the thing that will look like the middle of the ground, so that everything looks kind of okay, but not too crazy.
Yeah.
And in Spore, you could have seen like crazy, I'm not saying penis monsters are great, but you could have seen that, and you were like, oh,
penis monsters are one.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about Spore too
is that is all Spore is penis monsters.
And it was a grand dream.
The cool thing about Spore 2 is when you would get somebody's creature in your game, you'd be like, oh shit, I didn't even know that was possible. Like you would see somebody do something with oh wow, I can make this, 500 horned
that
beast.
dick monster.
Yeah, exactly. But coming from...
Wow, it's got the veins so realistically.
Yes, 2 penises. I didn't think about that.
It's a very turgid monster right there.
I was playing a ton of Elite Dangerous before I was playing, right around the time No Man's Sky came out, and I don't know if you guys ever dabbled in Elite, but they do some really cool stuff with procedural generation of planet surfaces and things like that. So a lot of my thoughts were like, okay, well, if they can do that, maybe this is some next level stuff. But I thought it would be possible. I didn't think the procedural generation looked anywhere near as good as E3, but I expected a lot more. And then when gameplay started leaking out, there was a guy who bought like an early copy on eBay for like a ton of money or something, and he was streaming it.
Yeah, he broke Street Date, yeah.
Yeah, and the stuff that they were showing were just, it was like, wow. I know they ended up doing a day one patch that fixed a lot of the issues with that, but the stuff he was getting in his game, I was like, wow, these are just terrible.
When I look at gameplay of No Man's Sky, when it was shown on E3, I was 90% sure that was all the game was. You just hop from planet to planet and do nothing else. And that's probably what they had in mind, and then just built this, bullcrap around it.
I would think so too.
That's the problem. Like, I didn't know what you did in No Man's Sky up until No Man's Sky came out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what the point of the game is or what the end goal is, why are you even going in to play it in the first place?
And I like a good exploration game. I love Journey. I play a ton of Elite Dangerous, and I'll go out into the black, as they call it, and get some exploration data and do stuff like that. So it's not that I don't enjoy exploring. It's just, if there's got to be some means to an end at some point to it,
Yeah, you have to be able to get something out of it, and I don't think that No Man's Sky really delivered on getting things out of it. Like I said, they're very cagey, not only after release, but also pre-release.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even release review copies up until the release date. So there are no pre-release reviews for customers to consult before making a purchase. And this is a trend that we're seeing more and more among publishers, that they're restricting reviews. They're not sending out review copies before release. For example, Bethesda has now started that
nice
this year.
Segue.
Segue game is strong.
Nice.
See, you're not supposed to point out the segues.
I had to, man. I had to.
We just want to appreciate your skill in this, man.
Exactly.
Well, I had all that time to think it up while you were talking about it. Anyway, let's talk about Bethesda and their new review policy. Because Bethesda's review policy is now to send out review copies only a day before release. So maybe this works for, a 4-hour game, but Bethesda doesn't really make 4-hour games. They make huge epics like Fallout or Skyrim that can take dozens or sometimes even hundreds of hours to play through.
My opinion on this, and this might be me being more of a Bethesda fan than I am a game journalism fan. my impression on this might be that they're kind of trying to force the hands of reviewers to do more of the reviews in progress that have lately been kind of taking over the internet. I'm sure if you guys go to a lot of game review sites, you've been seeing the review in progress where the reviewer kind of talks about, here's my initial impressions, here's my day 2 impressions, and those to me are the strongest reviews out there right now when it comes to games. I know I kind of don't go as much as I used to, but did you guys see like the Final Fantasy 15 review on AV Club?
Yeah.
Like that to me is a good example. He talks about his first couple days reaction to the game and how great it is, and then there's a part 2 and it's like, and now it's starting to suck. You know? So I think reviews in progress are kind of, to me, the reviews of the future. And I think this is Bethesda's way of saying, look, you can't give a 7 out of 10 for a game you've only played for a day if it's a 200-hour game. Give it a real review. And, that's kind of my opinion on it, because I feel like so many of these reviews that are coming out now, IGN just gives everything an 8, right? I mean, they just give everything an 8. Everything's good. Everything's,
Unless you've got hand, then it's 3 out of 10.
Yeah. Everything. So I mean, it's just kind of weird to me. Like when everything's an 8, and you can kind of tell through some of the language that maybe they didn't get as far as they can. Maybe they didn't explore as many of the in-game systems because they're on a tight deadline. And I mean, that's making an excuse for a guy who's doing a job. But
well, have you seen that? I think it was GameSpot, their review for Nier.
Mm-mm.
He gets to a bit probably about 10 hours into that game, that's about a 40-hour game, where he can't finish a quest, so he says the game's shit.
Huh.
Like he can't find a fish because he's fishing at the wrong fucking...
Oh, I remember that. I remember that, and people were so pissed about that.
And
Yeah, but that's at that point you get help from your colleague, responsible employee, to help you finish the game.
What I liked...
quests are clear, you dock points accordingly, but you finish the damn game, right?
Mm-hmm.
I liked when I was listening to
the ending.
Yeah, I was listening to Dan Reichert from Giant Bomb now talking about when he played Rhythm Heaven for the Wii, or Wii U? One of those. I don't remember. I think it was on the Wii. And he said that when he was reviewing the game, he got to the point where he couldn't go on. And so he went up to his boss and said, "Okay, I'm not going to finish it. I can't review this game." And they just gave the game to some other reviewer that finished it and then scored it. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just common sense that if you can't finish a game, you're not good enough, or maybe something breaks, maybe don't put an official score on it, because that, I don't know, that kind of sucks.
And
that's the Bethesda thing though. Like, okay, so I kind of get where they're coming from doing this and everything, but I think of all the companies to do it, Bethesda doing it, like, with the amount of broken games they release, is shady as fuck. Mm-hmm. Like, I remember I had Skyrim on the PS3, and that game just straight up breaks after you've been playing it for 50 hours. Like,
yeah, the save file.
Unplayable.
Yeah, loading is insane.
And so they're going to release games, like, they've proven they're fine with releasing games on that quality, like that level of finishedness, and they're going to release that, and now people aren't allowed to know about that before they buy it? That's fucked.
Yeah, so, Oblivion is still broken a decade after release.
Yeah,
it doesn't work.
Skyrim patch never came. They never fixed that bug. You can't beat Skyrim on the PS3.
Yeah, but I think there's some... that was, I think a lot of people talked about this, during the 2015 Game of the Year conversations, because Fallout 4 came out then and it was broken, and people were like, okay, so Bethesda is always going to come out with broken games? Like, what's going on? Can you make a game this big that's not broken? And, that was the whole conversation then, so... I don't know.
But I think the thing is, okay, Bethesda make big games, and I understand that, like, game development is hard. If you're making a game that complex, there's more stuff going to be broken in it. That's just the way game development works. But the quality, like, the actual level of polish in their game, compared to games of a similar size that other companies are making, like The Witcher 3 or something, like, The Witcher 3 wasn't the most polished game in the world, but it was more polished than a Bethesda game, and that's made by a way smaller studio.
See, Bethesda games, to me, I always play them on PC, which means one thing, I fix them with mods, or the console. You know, I talked about this. I think it was maybe my second post on the avocado. I said, hey, you know, one of the things I do is I cheat in a lot of video games. And one of the things, you know, if you guys are having trouble with Skyrim, if you're having trouble with Fallout 4, learn the console because you can fix almost everything in that console. And I think that's why my experience with Bethesda is just so different than everybody else's because, you know, I'll see, oh, this quest is broke or this did this did that. And I just type it in and, you know, I finish it and I keep moving on about my day.
but
You shouldn't have to do that.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
but
I shouldn't have to do that. And it definitely takes me out of the game
Mhm.
when I have to fix it from the outside.
Also, I'm like 99% of my games are on console, so Bethesda games are just broken forever for me.
And some of that too, I mean, I don't know how much of that now is still on Sony because I know that the original excuse from Bethesda was that they were given some bad information about how the PS3 saves things or something like that, and that's why that file ended up getting corrupted all the time. And
Well,
then
it wasn't the corruption. Sorry, I think we got confused here. I'm not talking about the corruption. What the PlayStation 3 version of Skyrim has is the longer you play the game, it starts storing more and more information about what you've done in the world and everything, which creates a memory leak, which makes the frame rate progressively get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah. And not only
by the
that,
time I was
think
up to like hour 100 or something, I was playing a game at like 12 frames a second. They
Yeah,
released
also-
3 patches trying to fix it, and all that did was extend how long it took before your game became unplayable.
I also think it made save files like too big for the system, and it like you had no way of controlling that really.
that was the one that I had heard about initially, was that the save file got so big that the PS3 couldn't read the save file because it got too big. But even now, you know, Bethesda's been struggling with Sony as far as getting the mods out on PS4. I think they finally got some kind of half of a version compared to what's on Xbox out. But you know, I don't know if they don't have good dialogue between the two companies or what.
It's Sony has the thing where Bethesda have to actually check every mod that gets released, which is insane.
Yeah. And
I hope the Thomas the Engine mod is there though. That's the one I want to have.
The console is the mods can't have like licensed stuff on. That's the one rule that Xbox and PlayStation both have. So you can't get lightsabers, you get laser swords and shit like that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, makes sense. So I think that's Thomas the Engine is not public domain, I would assume.
No, but there is a generic train mod which lets you rain trains from the sky.
Yeah, that's okay. That's fun.
It's good enough.
Also, apparently Macho Man Randy Savage doesn't count as a intellectual property because he's in all of them.
Oh, good.
Which is crazy. I think that I would thought that WWE would come after them.
They're particularly litigious as an organization.
Yeah.
Although the World Wildlife Fund managed to get them to change their name.
Because Macho Man Randy Savage was actually a WCW wrestler originally, and then I think he moved to WWE later, but they don't own Macho Man Randy Savage. Macho Man Randy Savage owns
Nobody owns Macho Man Randy Savage.
I guess Randy Savage isn't particularly litigious himself.
So,
he's dead, so I don't think he's going to do much.
One thing about Bethesda's policy, though, is that YouTubers are still gonna get some access to it, and there's no way you can talk about game journalism, right, without sounding like a Gamergator type guy, right? I mean, you just can't do it. But it really does talk about how shitty game journalism, especially reviews, are right now, where like reviewers on YouTube are getting priority access over things, you know, like the game review sites that actually should be reviewing games a little more thoroughly. And I think it's because they want those streaming clicks for when the game comes out, right?
I mean, I think there's another force at work here, which is that you can get these YouTubers can get, you know, sponsorship deals or sign agreements that make it so that they only say certain things about the game. Yeah. Whereas a reviewer at any sort of reputable outlet, even places that are considered super commercial like GameSpot or IGN, they don't compromise the content of their reviews in order to appease publishers. And they might agree not to mention certain plot points, but beyond that, you can't get them to sign a contract to only speak favorably about the game. So putting
Although
out
you could get fired.
Yeah, that's a recipe for getting fired. Or if it ever comes out, then that outlet's business is dead. So whereas YouTubers, as long as they disclose that they received compensation for the video they're making, they can go ahead and say all the positive things they want and leave out all the criticism that the publishers don't want in there. And
I thought
publishers are going to be perfectly happy.
wasn't there a whole big thing where GameSpot was doing that though?
Yes.
And they fired the dude for a dude quit because he wanted to give a game like a 3 out of 10 instead of an 8 out of 10. I think it was.
Yeah,
You're talking about
Lynch.
Jeff
Yeah.
Gerstmann.
Jeff Gerstmann
yeah.
gave 7.0 to Kane and Lynch, and they said, "Well, man, I don't know about that." And a month later, he quit, but
Went
he
on
was
punt,
let
found
go.
giant-
Yeah.
7 out of 10 is a fucking generous score for that game, I gotta say.
The way I always say that, I always frame that is the one time we've heard about publishers paying for higher review scores.
Mm-hmm.
If this were a common occurrence, there would be more giant bombs.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like hearing of the kid who gets brain cancer and thinking, oh wow, this is common. No, the reason it's on the news is because it doesn't happen all the time. That was a really weird episode, and I think that what it showed though, at least at that time, was that publishers were the ones in control of that entire process, at least in that period. But I think now you've got YouTubers who are kind of leading the charge on a lot of these games, because if you're a popular YouTuber with millions of views and you're not going to review the latest, hottest, whatever game, it goes right to the publisher's bottom line,
Honestly,
Yeah,
does
I
anyone-
mean-
I actually get all my news and shit nowadays mainly from YouTube because, I can't be bothered with most of the fucking, big game review sites at this point.
I still haven't migrated to YouTube, mainly because I'm sort of set in my ways. I still prefer text news, but I do have to acknowledge that, especially amongst the younger crowd, that's where they're getting information about games.
Mm-hmm.
They're not, going out to read Destructoid or IGN. They're looking up their favorite YouTuber and playing what he or she recommends.
Like their favorite YouTuber, T. Martin.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Speaking of YouTubers, so
Man.
yeah, the Kappa was a great segue there. Yeah. So speaking of YouTubers, there was a massive scandal, and I don't say massive lightly. It was a very large scandal in the world of YouTube earlier this year. To provide some background, Counter-Strike Global Offensive is a popular game. published by
Why?
Valve.
I don't know, but it is.
Oh yeah, it is. And I know because
popular.
my friend plays it obsessively.
Well, if you want to get destroyed by a Russian teenager with too much time on his hands, Counter-Strike Global Offensive is the
Yeah.
game for you. So there are sites set up where people basically bet on matches and bet on in-game items. None of these gambling sites, by the way, are endorsed by Valve. But a lot of YouTubers, they promote these sites. Some of them disclose that they've been paid to promote these sites, and some of them don't. Such as Trevor T. Martin and Tom Pro Syndicate Cassell, who were shilling their own betting website that they had founded without disclosing that they had any sort of affiliation with it. So not only is this horribly unethical, it's also possibly, if not probably, illegal.
Yeah.
So when that whole scandal broke, it caused a huge shitstorm, and reporters in the games industry were all over it. And T. Martin and Pro Syndicate, they send out apology videos. I can't remember which one. I think it was T. Martin.
Walking through his $1 million mansion, talking about how he's just one of the little guys.
Yeah, one of them went on I'm sorry for any confusion that I caused, but really it's not my fault, or some stupid bullshit like that.
It was one of the world's worst apology videos. That got a lot of people's attention as
Man,
well.
I gotta tell you, two things. A, Trevor T. Martin. I love saying that. That's fantastic. It's like his second name. Second thing, this thing always seemed really scummy and like skeevy. I always thought whoa, this can't be legal. When does the government step in and say I don't know, guys, this is 100% online gambling? And so
I mean,
would
they haven't
have
stepped
thought,
in with microtransactions yet, so
yeah.
Yeah, but this is one of the things where the government loves to regulate gambling because it's free
Oh, yeah.
money for them. I mean, it really is. People love to gamble and the government wants to get its cut. And it's only a matter of time before people figure out, how to monetize this or whatever. But I don't know if you guys ever play CS:GO or Dota or any of those other Valve games where there's a ton of items out there. But Valve always kind of feels like they're kind of like the parent that's like buying the kids the beer to have the party at their house. Do you know what I mean? Like,
That's a good analogy. Yeah.
like it always feels like they're at least kind of supporting all this stuff because if they wanted to, they could shut this down in a second.
But
they
they're
don't.
making that money.
Yeah.
the analogy I'd give is that maybe they're not buying the beer for the kids, but they're definitely leaving the kids home alone every other weekend.
Yeah, and they're not marking the bottles with the Sharpie to make sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're going out and they're saying, "Don't have any parties." Wink, wink, wink.
yeah, that's basically
Leaving
what
the
they're
keys
doing.
to the liquor cabinet on the bench.
Because even the vast amount of Steam account hijacks come from this. I'm always worried because I play a ton of Dota too, and I have a ton of like, $30, $40, $50 items in my inventory. So that makes you a target. When you're one of these people who has, and I post these sometimes on the open thread, you have a $50,000 VAC inventory, Valve inventory. You're like the world's biggest target for someone to come hijack your account, steal all your stuff, put it on one of these sites, and then turn it into real money really easily because it's almost like the laundering is done for you, And then
Yeah.
Steam has the world's worst customer service. They're never going to help you get your account back, number one. If you're one of the 1 million people who happen to get your account back, they're not going to give you your items back. So it's like a victimless crime.
Wait, they don't give you your items back?
No.
God, Steam's a piece of shit.
The customer support for Steam is just some of the worst. So, I mean, you can go through and read some of the horror stories about, hey, my account got stolen, all these, crazy items I got stolen, and Valve won't give you the items back because they're not yours kind of or something like that. So instead they try to do all these little workarounds with the trade system itself on Steam. Like, I tried to give one of my friends one of those stupid trading cards, and, like, there's all these steps we have to go through, on our phone and on everything else to authorize it.
Yeah.
So that's the way they fight it.
Ass.
Yeah, that's the way they fight it instead of, like, really getting serious about, getting the accounts back and stopping the people who are stealing, because they can track all this stuff, right? I mean, I'm guessing.
I don't know how it
If
works.
they can't,
so-
they've done something really bad when they were building Steam.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Maybe for ease
I
of use, it's not that regimented. I don't know.
I mean, I think they can. I just think they don't give a shit.
yeah,
Maybe.
because
Or
I
at
mean,
least they don't give a shit until they have to.
to me, gambling on games is one thing, but gambling on games with in-game items just all feels weird to me, and it just feels like it's going to lead to this type of stuff. There's always going to be somebody who's manipulating the system, or just doing something behind the scenes that never feels like it's legit. So I do put kind of some of this blame on Valve, who, if there was any big news in my year, it's been Valve kind of just kind of taking a leap off of where I thought they were and who I thought they were, and instead kind of becoming this company that I don't really respect anywhere near as much as I used to.
Yeah, I mean, they've had a lot of trouble this year, especially earlier this year. This is something that I just remembered. There was the big scandal when it was basically revealed that G2A was selling stolen keys
Oh yeah.
for video
That's
games,
right.
because people use it to essentially essentially a way of laundering money. What you do is you buy keys with a stolen credit card, and then you sell the keys on G2A. You make some profit, but these stolen keys were fraudulently obtained, so then they get canceled by Valve. But now you've already run away with the profit.
Right, and you don't get the game. Ooh, so
Yeah, and Valve has said they're canceling all these stolen keys. So somebody might purchase a game from G2A, and then they just have no recourse because it's a legitimate key that just ends up getting canceled.
right.
Valve has really not shown any mercy.
That and the
I-
between that and what Project Greenlight has become, and where Steam is just going, just kind of as a dumping ground for everybody with an RPG Maker game, has really kind of made me, question what it is that they're doing. Is it a marketplace? Is it a curated site? Is it, can they guarantee that the games I'm downloading aren't full of viruses anymore?
don't know
That's the
about
thing.
that, but
They have
it's like, yeah, go on.
Sorry, you go.
I just want to say, like, they're more regimented than the Sura or the like, but I think they wanted to create like this, what was it called? They have a system, curation system, on Steam.
Game curators?
Yeah, curator system, and they were like, okay, you curate games, community now curates these games. We don't have like that much power over that, and we're pretty much like releasing every Android game ever created. So good luck with that.
Yeah, and then the curation was
38
just a joke. It was like I would go on there and I'd say, like, oh, hey guys, this game doesn't have a donkey in it, 0 out of 10 stars. So people, click it because it was funny. So the curation system just became a joke. It was all like, does this game have waffles? Yes or no? Or you know.
Can I interject for a second here? I'm looking at Steam right now and popular new releases. 1, Clicker Guild, some kind of Android game. 8-Bit Invaders, looks kind of Androidy. Street Warriors Online, looks like garbage. Legend of Merchant, I don't know what this is. And so on and so on.
And then a bunch of Payday 2 DLC.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like, it's insane.
38% of games were released that are on Steam were released on Steam in 2016.
Yeah,
That's insane.
it's nuts.
Shit.
And
Yeah.
when you go through it, it makes sense because it's all these half-finished early access games, right? Early access is a scam. I will never. I've had some good experience with early access. I shouldn't say that, but there's so many scam-feeling games that are in early access where you have no idea if this game is ever going to be finished or not. And it always kind of just has that little background of, hey, if the game doesn't get finished, too bad, you've already paid for it. Here's what you get. A lot of that kind of stuff just, I would expect Steam to protect me from that, not the developer who's just making the buck,
I think
Yes.
the
Yeah.
problem
Speaking of
has
that, did you
become
guys-
is that
Sorry, go ahead.
Steam has the complete monopoly on online stores. So
Mhm.
if you don't like what they're doing, what the fuck are you going to do? Use Origin? Like, they know
Yeah,
that they
I have been
That's
lately.
actually-
That's the
so-
thing. I have been. If I've been buying EA games lately, I've been using Origin. I bought Titanfall 2 and Battlefield 1 through there.
I mean, you could also use good old games, I guess.
Yeah.
Nah.
But
Good Old
yeah,
Games
that's
has
the
its strong
thing.
points for sure.
Yeah.
I love good old games. I'm a big fan, but like that's the thing. If you want to buy games on PC, you use Steam. It's like I don't like Steam, and I have it installed on my computer because I have to if I want to play games.
Yeah.
Basically.
I liked Steam for 3 years, and now I'm like, there's a tipping point there. There was a tipping point.
This is the first year I've ever done this. I've never done this before. I used to be one of those, not going to use Uplay, not going to use Origin, not going to use GOG, not going to use anything. This year I've actually been doing the opposite. Like when I'm interested in buying a new game, I'm going to check that publisher's store first. I mean, yes, it sucks to have 5 different marketplaces on my desktop, but I feel like I had one interaction with Origin support that was so good. I bought Mass Effect, the trilogy, and for some reason it didn't come with one of the DLCs. I got into the support chat within like probably 3 minutes. The guy had credited my account for that Mass Effect game and went ahead and upgraded them all to the N7 digital deluxes, just like that over the chat. Yeah. So many of those chat programs you get on with people, and it's pulling teeth. Do you know what I mean? It's like, send me a picture of this. Go find your.
Like they have had like the return policy. They have a return
Oh,
policy.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that
Long before Valve did.
Steam.
Yeah, I think
Valve got sued by
Yeah.
Australian government
Yeah.
to make them have one.
Yeah, and I think the fact that Origin had a return policy, like people were starting to demand that from Valve because they didn't think like, oh yeah, digital games, that's not realistic to think about return policy. And then Origin did that, and then people were like, well, wait a second now, Valve, what are you doing here? And like I think that this competition is pretty good, but they need to kind of be more prolific, I think.
And at the risk of sounding like a total Origin shill, I will tell you that EA Access program, have you guys heard about that?
Yeah.
That's
I
about
have, but I've never used it.
About the best deal in games if you play, a lot of like sports games or stuff like that. I've got it on my Xbox One. And you basically get last year's Madden, last year's FIFA, last year's NHL, all for free, well, for $5 a month. And you keep it as long as you keep active in the EA Access program, they've released some good stuff there. I think Inquisition's on there.
Yeah.
It's basically PS Plus for EA games, isn't
Yeah,
it?
exactly. And I mean that's not a bad price. That's a pretty economical deal. $5 a month, I feel like, to own whatever they decide to put in the vault. I think they're putting Battlefront in the vault this week. So I mean they're keeping it current, which is good to hear.
If only Origin were releasing more Android games.
I need some more.
The other thing with Steam that's happening at the moment is, I don't know how much you guys follow the indie game dev scene.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
Like, they are fucking killing the indie game dev scene. Like, the greenlight thing straight away is bullshit. Like, it's a popularity contest to get your game on Steam unless you're a major publisher. So there's, I know Spooky's House of Jump Scares. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah. That's a good game. I like that.
Yeah, she is making a HD complete remake of it with like all actual 3D monsters and all that kind of shit. Cool. And she can't get it on Steam at the moment because she's waiting for enough people to say they want it.
Oh, that's
like,
bullcrap.
And the whole thing with like the release, like fucking like all the just dumping old Android games and everything on it. I know a game came out earlier this year, Assault Android Cactus, which if you haven't played it, you should. It's amazing. It got put on Steam. It was on the front page for like 10 minutes, and then a whole bunch of Android games came and pushed like page 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it never got any of that.
Yeah, games just can't get any traction anymore.
Well, it's because
it's really hard to discover things.
They get bumped down by like visual novels. Like those stupid like, you know what I mean? Like, I guess I don't know what you do. I don't know if you jerk off to it or what.
They're good visual novels,
and there are lots of shitty ones.
There's so many games. Like there's like 20 games every second come out, and that's impossible to keep track of them all.
I have a visual novel on my top 10 list.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, like I said, there are lots of good visual novels, but there are lots of people putting like some shit that they threw together in RenPy. That's full of spelling errors up on there.
That's what I'm getting at. Like the visual novels that aren't good, the RPG Maker games. You know what I mean? Like just like the
Unity Engine asset flips.
Yeah, Unity Engine asset. You flip it and it's a new game.
Those are the worst to me. I would take the shitty visual novels and bad RPG Maker games over that shit any day.
At least there's some intention to make something good.
I don't know, there's so many dating games. God, there's so many visual novel dating games. It sometimes seems like they use Mad Libs. They just use Mad Libs to create those goddamn games.
So, I mean, but that's what I guess what I'm getting at. I'm hoping that Steam kind of hears what, and this isn't new. Steam's been getting, hit with this for a while now. I feel like the tide is kind of getting back to Steam and saying, look, man, I got a lot of money in you guys. I want you to be around forever, if possible. So, fix your stuff, because at some point, if you guys get sued into oblivion, or like people just stop using this because it's so full of junk, and I don't know how Valve pretty much prints money, I'm sure, right now, but I want them to be a healthy company for a very long time, because I have 1,600 games, library wrapped up into it.
Because you want to play Half-Life 3 when it comes out in 30
Can you imagine the apocalypse, the day Valve shuts down?
Oh, man.
Can you imagine how insane it'll be? Oh, I can't wait.
But there's
I hope I live to see that day.
What I hope happens
is I have 65 games in Steam, and I hate Steam, so people that like Steam...
They're a dying breed. I mean, I really think they are.
I'm mostly a PC gamer. I have 270.
I have 600 games on Steam.
Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing, that Steam doesn't seem committed to fixing any of the problems it has. In fact, earlier this year, there was this hacker who found a vulnerability in Steam that allowed people to basically upload games to the service without any approval whatsoever from Valve. He tried pointing this out to Valve. They basically ignored him. They didn't fix the problem. So what he eventually did to get their attention was he uploaded his own fake game to Steam. I think it was called something like Watch Paint Drive.
Yeah.
Something like that. And that finally got Valve's attention, and they fixed the bug.
Yeah, you know what's weird about it is, this used to be true. I don't know if you guys ever followed it, but if you wanted customer support from Steam, theoretically everybody who worked at Valve, whether he was, a graphics guy on the Half-Life, or whether he was Gabe himself, or, theoretically everybody worked customer support at Valve. So you literally would just email random people and get a random email back from somebody at Steam, when you had any kind of account issues or questions about anything, so they didn't have a dedicated customer support service, and I'm really sure they didn't add one when they added in all these, game submission projects. So it probably used to be there was a formal submission, but everything through Steam is automated. Have you ever tried to return a game on Steam? I mean, you don't talk to anybody.
No.
It's all, some bot somewhere. So somebody figuring this out was probably, the next step. But that's kind of what I'm getting at. If the submission process is almost too easy, that's why you get a ton of this, Unity asset packs that have no effort into them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the thing isn't the submission process is too easy. It's fucking all the worst ways, because if you're a legitimate indie developer, you have to go through Greenlight. You have to get so many lights and everything right. Or if you can become, I don't know how you become a recognized developer, then you can put shit on there with no approval whatsoever, and that's where you get
digital homicide, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You will just dump 100 Android games with no support for keyboard and mouse on them.
Yeah.
That's how that shit happens. It's insane.
How do you make a PC game with no support for keyboard and mouse?
You totally
That's the thing. They're
can.
porting mobile phone games to Steam and not changing anything. Not putting in support to your fucking input devices.
I mean, it
How do you
looks
fucking
like
play
a
that
game.
without, unless you have a touchscreen monitor? That's
You
the one
literally
game.
can't.
That'd be the one game I'd be able to play on my laptop, but not my desktop.
I think the only thing Steam looks up is, can you start this program? Yes. Does it have screenshots? Yes. Okay,
Sometimes they don't even fulfill that criterion.
Oh yeah, that's true.
One
that's
game,
true.
wasn't there one game that released earlier this year that released without the EXE, and then they patched it almost immediately?
Nice.
Yeah, it was
Nice.
big. It was
Yeah, I forget which.
a major publisher game or something. I forget what it was though, but I do remember that.
Yeah, I do too. I want to say that you downloaded it. It was just like a text file, like a readme.txt, and the people were like, "Wait, is this the game?"
The whole game is in the text file.
Yeah, we'll have to look it up, because I remember something like that. Like the game wouldn't start for everybody, and they patched it almost immediately. But still, it's kind of sad.
It's just like their fuck up of what they put on the thing. They put the wrong folder in or something. But yeah, it happened and got on the fucking store.
Speaking of games that released in an incomplete state, Street Fighter V released this year.
Nice.
Capcom put it out, and it released without a single-player campaign. It was just a multiplayer component with apparently a very broken matchmaking system, from what I hear.
Yeah.
Not 100% true. It had a single player campaign. It just wasn't very good.
No, it didn't really have a single player campaign.
It had the story mode. It had every character had story mode, which was 4 fights with a bunch of dialogue and art between each fight.
Yeah, it was
My
garbage.
understanding was that the story mode was not in the game at release and was patched in later.
There
No,
was a
two different story
separate
modes.
story that patched in later that was like a full cutscene thing like Mortal Kombat and shit have. But it
And
did
the
have,
first one,
So
guess
the
what?
bare bones story mode first.
Yeah, guess what? The first one is like a visual novel. Tying it back
Was
in.
it made in Red Pie as well?
It was actually a dating thing. Don't worry about it.
you had to choose whether you wanted to date Guile or Zane.
Yeah.
Yeah, Guile was in the fucking game at release. Shit.
I'm imagining this like a bad sex game a la Hot Coffee from San Andreas.
Oh yeah.
Well, now
You have to fight, but you have to fight.
with all the new VR headsets, that might be more of a possibility than you think.
Check
Yeah,
your moves,
like-
man.
Missing more stuff than the story mode though. The matchmaking was fine. That wasn't broken. What it didn't have though was proper lobbies. It only had lobbies
okay.
to put 2 people in, which because I bought it because it came out early because they wanted to get it out so it could be in Evo this year. And I bought it on launch because I'm badly into fighting games, and I have a bunch of mates that I always play my fighting games with and everything. But we couldn't get a lobby going because fuck you, they don't come out for another big.
Yeah.
And it would also crash because I have it on PC. It crashed a lot. My friend couldn't get it to connect to the actual Capcom servers for 2 weeks after it came out. And it's painful because that game is amazing.
Yeah, the worst
Except-
part about all of that is that the game is pretty great.
Like, everything outside of the fighting in Street Fighter V is shit. It's
Yeah.
garbage. The
Yeah.
actual fighting, amazing. Best Street Fighter I've played.
Yeah, it's like they have a small team that makes the fighting stuff, and they're amazing at doing that. And then all of the rest of Capcom is in shambles.
That's all like Mirror's Edge Catalyst, where like the basic mechanics and everything was excellent, but like the story mode and then all and everything else surrounding it was just garbage.
That's from my experience with that. That's Destiny at release. I don't know if you guys ever played Destiny, but
I
Yeah,
played a
the
lot.
shooting is great, but
Yeah.
yeah, everything else.
the parts that were Halo were great. Everything else.
One thing I have to say about Destiny is that I played through it. I played the last mission, and I was so mad that it was the last mission. Like, what are you saying to me, Peter Dinklage?
He's not in the game anymore. They patched him out.
I played it
I
when
think it's
he
the
was
first time
still
they've
in
ever
the game.
passed out a voice actor from a game.
Yeah, that's weird. That's a weird thing. That's a
Did
whole
anyone
weird.
actually play the story mode that did end up coming in Street Fighter V?
No.
It's really, really good.
Oh, okay.
It's fantastic. It has a lot of loading in, which I hear if you play on PlayStation 4 is painful as hell because that's like 10, 15-second loading screen. On computer it's like 1 or 2. But it's the exact amount of dumb anime bullshit I want from a Street Fighter story. Like,
Okay.
it turned Zangief, who I don't like Zangief. Zangief is a crappy character, into one of my favorite characters because he stops the sword with his muscles, like catching it
Right.
in his neck muscles and then snapping it.
That
Wow.
sounds pretty good. You
Is
know
it-
what sounds?
They're talking like Keijo levels of ridiculousness.
I'll interject here a little bit. You know what sounds really good and looks really good also? That Tekken story mode looking pretty good.
Holy shit, does it?
Yeah, it
How
looks
it's
pretty
cut back
good.
and forth between cutscenes and the fighting? That's crazy.
Yeah, that's looking pretty good.
Is this
I'm
something
just,
that Mortal Kombat started? Because I can't think of many.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Mortal Kombat fucking versus DC Universe.
Yeah, it had some of it.
It had the exact same story mode as Mortal Kombat 9. It was just badly done.
'Cause I don't
Yeah, it
remember.
was probably done.
I don't remember many fighting games having a story as much as I do, like like a tournament mode or whatever. Where like you battle your way to the final boss. But
Mortal Kombat,
Tekken 3 had
in-
ridiculous cutscenes. I love that about Tekken 3.
now the first fighting game that had like a proper story mode would have either been the World Warrior mode in Street Fighter Alpha 3, I think, or what was the Mortal Kombat game that had Shinjoko in and it was really bad? I think Deadly Alliance.
Deadly Alliance.
That game has an RPG in it. And
Yes,
shit,
yes it does.
but
It's pretty bad.
there. And then
You don't
Armageddon
fight
has
anyone,
a
I
God of
think.
War clone in it.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
Armageddon has a God of War clone in it. It has a fucking Mario Kart game in it. It has a Tetris game in it.
Yeah, it's
It has
insane.
every single character that has ever been in a Mortal Kombat game, including like a recolor of one of the ninjas that was only in a Game Boy Advance port. She made it into that fucking game.
Yeah.
Mortal Kombat Armageddon is insane. It's just a shame that it's not a very good game.
Yeah.
But yeah, they are slowly like fixing Street Fighter V, I guess. Like now, the other thing it had also was to unlock characters. To unlock colors for your characters. Street Fighter 4 had it. You just play the game, and as you did more stuff, you would unlock more colors and everything. Street Fighter 5, you had to do the survival, and the survival mode is fucked in that game. For the first 20 fights or so, it is the most brain dead thing you've ever done. You can literally just sit there doing Hadoukens, and you will win. And not get
Now, I'll
And
have to.
fight.
Yeah.
Sorry? You go.
I have to ask the important question: how much fight money do you have?
How much fight money?
Yes.
I actually haven't played it since Fury came out because it keeps crashing on my computer now because my computer
Oh.
keeps it. But I didn't have that much fight money because I paid real money for everything.
Oh my god.
Hey,
I'm
You don't
silently judging you.
Yeah.
No, I paid money for everything. Don't worry about me.
You want to judge me? I put $300 into the Skullgirls Indiegogo campaign for new characters.
Huh.
I put 200 into
I-
Marvel Heroes,
yeah,
so.
Not judging you at all.
Yeah,
I-
you know.
$500 into their new RPG game that they're making. I put a lot of money into fighting games. I have 4 arcade sticks that are like $130 each.
That's I love arcade sticks are my jam, so I'm not going to judge you for
I
that.
flew to Melbourne for a tournament once, for fuck's sake. If you don't know Australia very well, that's literally the other side of the country. That's like
Are you up in
south.
Perth?
Cool.
Oh wait,
No,
north south.
I'm
Never mind.
north. I'm in
North.
Brisbane.
Brisbane.
Melbourne
Yeah.
is like the southern corner of.
Yeah. Okay.
Any Australian that
very well.
buys video games is hardcore enough for me. What are games costing now?
They're about $100.
Yeah.
Wow. Hey, you funded like Skullgirls. Did you like it? Just question.
I put that much. Because the Skullgirls Indiegogo campaign wasn't for Skullgirls. It was Skullgirls was already out. And
Oh
then
yeah.
they were
Additional
funding
characters.
like new characters and shit.
Mhm,
And
yeah.
Skullgirls is so good that I will give as much money as I can afford to anything those guys make from now on.
Okay.
Like,
Cool.
I fucking adore Skullgirls.
Cool.
So, you want to talk about that VR now?
Yeah.
What a
Let's talk about
segue.
Has anyone played VR?
Yeah,
No,
I
not
hate
so.
it. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, so 3 commercial VR headsets finally got released this year. There was first the Oculus Rift, and the HTC Vive, and then PlayStation VR came out most recently. So they've released
Samsung Gear VR.
Pardon me?
The Samsung Gear VR?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. But I
I
mean
know
that's like the
that's
phone
what-
VR that attaches to your phone. So in terms of dedicated VR headsets, those are the 3 that released this year.
Yeah.
And for the most part, the reviews have been mixed. Not overly negative, not overly positive. It's cautiously optimistic. This technology has potential. Maybe this is the first go around. It didn't work so well, but it'll work better in the future. There have been some problems though with the release. Oculus in particular had trouble filling pre-orders, despite the fact that they were actually selling retail kits in stores like Best Buy. And PSVR apparently is released in an underpowered state and can be a little bit nauseating because of low frame rates. The technology definitely isn't there, and there have been some distributional issues. I was wondering if you guys had either played VR or heard anything else about the VR headsets.
My friend has a Vive. You know what it feels like? It feels like the when the Wii first came out or something. Like
Whoa.
No, just let's go with this. The gimmick part of it is cool, but there's not anything there behind the scenes to really keep me interested. I mean, the games that we were playing were like that. What's that job game?
Job
Simulator. Yeah, I mean it's okay. And he had a couple other like little demos on there. But nothing that was really just blowing me away. I don't know. I mean, like, that kind of money to invest into something that's this early, I would never buy an Oculus, first of all. Not just because of, what's his name, Lucky Palmer, but because...
Being a neo-Nazi
That's
Yeah.
a new story of the year. That's a new story of the year.
But also because I'm not going to put myself in any kind of walled garden that includes Facebook. The fact that they look at your browsing habits and all the other stuff that you do, no thanks. That's
They look at my virtual porn? Why would they do that?
See, that's the thing. You can't even do virtual porn with the Oculus because Facebook doesn't allow that for some reason. But in their storefront or whatever. But the Vive, I
So
mean,
you can hack it.
yeah, the Vive
I mean,
seems like the good
yeah.
middle ground, but I'm not ready to invest in that. I mean, I think I told you guys, I had the opportunity and I went with a widescreen monitor instead.
That's a good choice.
Yeah, I don't think it's there yet. I don't enjoy it. It's not designed for most real games, or I say real, that sounds like a jerk move, but you know what I'm talking about. I guess Fallout is gonna have a version that's gonna be in VR, but most of it
It's
is
a cool thing, apparently.
The only game that looks like it's going to have like a full-on VR support is that Resident Evil 7 game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I gotta say, these are way too expensive for
Mhm.
what software is out right now for those.
exactly.
The only thing I have is
What does it cost in America?
$6.99, I think.
Oh my god, fuck
Yeah.
you guys.
Yeah, it's too much. And the only thing
No,
I have
hate
is
HTC
that
Vive is $1,400 in Australia.
oh Jesus. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a
that's-
reason I'm not getting a fucking VR.
Oh,
system.
I'm sorry. The
Fuck
Vive
that.
is actually $799. The Oculus
Yeah.
Rift is $599. So
That's like double then in
Yeah.
Australia.
In Europe, HTC Vive is I think 800 euros. So that's
Euros.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's too much money, man. And yeah,
a lot of money.
yeah, that the only thing I have is the Samsung
Yeah,
thing.
I have the gear.
Yeah.
That's fine for what it is. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's a toy.
honestly,
it's kind of also for porn. No?
I think gear is more the future of VR than anything, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like, you know,
My wife got one for free with her phone. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That stuff. It doesn't look that much different than you know, the Vive runs. It's just basically putting the screens in there instead of it being your phone. But then you're using your computer to do the processing and everything.
I guess what's
that's
going
so-
to be the takeoff is I know you don't like the Oculus because of Facebook and all that stuff, but they did show at the last thing they are producing like a kind of like middle between the gear and the like actual ones that run on a computer. That's
Mhm.
a completely self-contained VR set, but with like a actual beefy computer in there to run stuff.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, so
I
you
think
like
that's
slot a
what-
cartridge in to play a game.
See,
Yeah,
that
or, like,
that
you
sounds
can
pretty
control it like
good.
that.
That sounds
sounds
better than
pretty
what it
good.
is right now. The
Yeah.
buy-in is too expensive. You know, it's just you know what I'd be more interested in, something like Microsoft's HoloLens, where you're getting
Okay.
a layer of
Cool.
augmented reality
Mhm.
on top of a game. To me,
You know, all those cables are too restrictive. That's the main issue, I think. It has to be more mobile. I agree with that. If I want to see, sit in my public transport seat and masturbate to some nice porn virtual reality, I want to do it. Damn it! So,
Europe is everything I imagined it to be.
No, but
What's the deal with VR porn not having proper head tracking? That's just disappointing.
it's all disappointing right now. It's all disappointing, man. But that HoloLens, I don't think that's coming out for consumers for another
What would
couple of
augmented
years.
reality porn even be?
I don't know. I'm scared. I'm scared of that.
Like, you have sex with your wife, but she's hotter?
Yeah. You just have like a face
God, I hope my
overlay.
wife doesn't listen to this.
Honey, what are you doing with those glasses? Nothing. No,
I just want to point out my favorite thing ever. If you're in a environment that is safe to look at, if you go to naughtyamerica.com, their front page is advertising their VR porn.
Oh, nice.
They've
Open
got
up a private window.
See,
I'm actually doing this right now, by the way.
I
I'm
just
looking-
think for gaming, augmented reality to me makes so much more sense when you look at something like Pokemon Go or something like that. You know, putting that another
Pokemon
layer
Go
between you and the game.
Glasses that let you see the actual Pokemon, I would never stop playing it.
Yeah, but isn't this a gimmick? Another gimmick?
Yeah, it is. It is, but you know, just think about this. So think about any shooter you've been playing, where instead of looking at the HUD on screen, you're looking at no HUD, and the HUD is projected inside of like the glasses, right?
That sounds very dangerous. Just walk around and shoot people.
By the way, Ben was not lying. On the Naughty America front page, there's a picture of a porn star who is wearing VR headset with her hand down her shorts.
Oh my God.
Merve doing the important research.
Yeah, the important research, the fact checking. I'm gonna close
I
this
think
window now.
everything is basically a gimmick until someone finds a way to make it like important. If you know
Yeah,
what
like
I mean.
3D cards.
Any-
Yeah, 3D cards were kind of a gimmick before like major 3D games,
I
came
think
out.
that is really what VR and also the augmented reality stuff is lacking at the moment. There's no, there's lots of like cool dumb little things and everything, but there's no like a serious game that like I don't see anything like, fuck, I want to sit down and play that game.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
If I was gonna
And-
play anything, it'd be something like like an Elite Dangerous or Eve or like a space game, you know, where you can really kind
For a
of
mech game.
yeah, exactly, something where you can feel the interior of being separate from the exterior. That would be cool to me. But
Yeah.
I know that Eve Valkyrie came out, but even diehard Eve fans said it wasn't very good. So yeah, I don't know, man.
It's
It's
in a little bit spreadsheet.
I mean, if you want to look at spreadsheets in VR, just play Job Simulator, right?
Yeah, sure.
So
Yeah.
Just have to say, speaking of VR though, if that MechWarrior 5 game that they showed the demo of came out with VR, I would probably have to commit and get VR.
Yeah,
yeah,
that looks cool.
MechWarrior is one of those games where it would really work. Did you guys ever play Steel Battalion with the ridiculous controller and everything?
No. I saw
Again,
the.
I'm in Australia. Shit was like $800.
I saw the Kinect demos where people were
Oh,
self-destructing.
for the sequel, Heavy Armor.
Yeah, that one.
I had
that-
one friend with the Steel Battalion set up, and it was as goofy as you'd imagine.
Yeah.
Then actually, how cool would VR be if you teamed it up with the Kinect so it like actually read your body properly?
A lot of them do that. A lot of them do incorporate eye tracking. I think the Vives is called the Lighthouse, I want to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
what you do is you hold controllers in your hand, and those are tracked by the quote unquote lighthouses
hmm
that you set up in your living room.
That's another thing that I don't think a lot of people see about VR is it's not just the goggles. If you really want to play most of the VR games, you need to have like a Kinect style setup at your computer screen, which is or somewhere in that room.
Getting the PlayStation VR and all the shit, like all the controllers and everything you need to support that, is going to cost me like $900.
Yeah, it's not worth
And
it.
Yeah.
that's the cheap entry level one.
Yeah, that's the thing. The technology is too expensive right now. It's only the hardcore enthusiasts who have a lot of money to throw around who are buying into this. I can't afford that shit.
All
I'm
my
not
friends
buying
got
into
one for
VR right now.
$300.
You take that
Yeah.
money and you dump it in a 4K monitor, and you'll be 10 million times more happier.
Oh yeah. And you have to have those hand controllers because when I showed Samsung VR to my friend, he was like, "Okay, but where are my hands?
Yeah.
What's the point?"
Yeah. Just put him
Yeah,
on Naughty
yeah.
America. So here's the point.
What's the point? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So moving away from pornography,
Segue.
let's speak about something that was about the same level of quality as most pornography, the Warcraft movie.
Man, I gotta defend this thing again from you guys, huh?
What a stretch,
Really
man.
Well, you demanded a segue. I haven't seen the Warcraft movie. I actually can't judge it. So it came out in May. It's the next movie in a long line of video game movies. Next one set to come out next year is the Assassin's Creed movie.
That comes out Christmas.
No,
Like
this
3
is
days.
Oh,
Christmas.
this year. It's coming out this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're finally gonna get to see Fassbender in action.
I'm so excited for that movie.
I'll go see it too.
I know Ben is. Ben's an Assassin's Creed fan.
Yeah.
I am
Yeah,
not
Warcraft
going to
movie
see.
came out this year to, let's just say, I wouldn't say extremely negative reviews,
No.
but like, this is a bad movie, but it's good by video game movie standards.
Yeah, I think
I haven't seen it.
I think it almost bit off too much to chew in a lot of ways. It tries to do too much as a movie, not even as a Warcraft or a video game movie, and I think that really hurts it. The pacing is all over the place, but my wife, who's never played one Warcraft anything, loved it. I mean, she
I
was.
have the same story actually. My brother is a livid like World of Warcraft fan, and he took his wife to see the movie, and she came out of and she said, "Yeah, it's pretty good. It was okay. I liked it. I could follow it. It was pretty good."
Fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
I-
I think it was
pretty big-
more for maybe the casual fans and even the hardcore fans in a weird way.
Mm-hmm.
So I am fairly hardcore. I've been playing Warcraft since Warcraft 2 when it was new. I played World of Warcraft for like 6 years and lost way too much of my life to that. I really liked it.
Yeah,
I thought it was fun. Like,
I liked it
Warcraft
too.
is kind of trash. Like
Oh yeah.
the storyline of the games, they're not good. They're like
No.
pulpy trash. They're fun and stupid, and it was the exact amount of fun, stupid I wanted from a Warcraft movie.
And the CGI was some of the best I've seen probably since Avatar. I mean, it looked good.
And
Cheap. That
Oh.
that movie was made on a budget of $160 million.
yeah, that's not bad.
Really cheap for that kind of thing. Like, I think Pacific Rim is like $200 million.
yeah.
And
Avatar was 500, I think.
One thing I gotta say is that we don't have too many fantasy movies around. So, whenever one comes out, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll watch that.
It's the kind of movie, the best way I could explain it is, 5 years from now, it's going to come on TBS on a Sunday afternoon, and I'm not going to change the channel. That's like the most glowing endorsement I would give of it.
What a review.
What?
Put it on the box.
So, all the reviews came out, and they're like, it's not very good and everything. It's the most successful video game movie that's ever been made.
Yeah.
It made, $400 million.
It'll get a sequel.
Was it huge in China?
Yeah.
Kinda loved
It was huge everywhere outside of America. America didn't like it. Everywhere else did.
Yeah.
Europe didn't go nuts for it either.
I think that what makes it good is kind of what makes it bad in a weird way, in that it's telling kind of like a story that's a little bit all over the place, but it's showing it to you as it happens. Like it's showing rather than telling, right? So it shows him get on a griffin and fly over here and deal with all this stuff, and then it cuts back over to here where all this other stuff is happening. So it's trying to give you a flavor of all the different societies and life and stuff like that, which I think makes it feel a little disconnected and makes it feel a little hurried. But I think that it sets up and it starts to build a world that can set up for sequels and things like that. That anybody can pop in that first one and follow right along where the story's going to next, which I'm assuming is going to be the Warcraft 2 storyline, which is probably the best if I had to say of Warcraft stories.
Warcraft 3 Arthas storyline is pretty good.
Yeah, but Warcraft 3.
But that's a pretty small scale story until you get to the undead stuff, So I don't know how far.
Yeah.
But they're gonna.
I think it's very personal. The more personal, the better the movie. I think.
Yeah, and I think they've got the right lead actor with what's
Travis
his name?
Fimmel?
Yeah. Not fucking Lothbrok.
Yeah, exactly. He did a good job. What's her name?
Paula Patton?
Zoe Saldana.
No, I think it's Paula Patton.
Paula Patton. Yeah.
Yeah.
She did a
Zoe
good
Saldana's in
very similar.
Yeah, Avatar and Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, I get those two mixed up.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but
yeah.
Paula Patton's the one who divorced Robin Thicke.
yeah, that's all I remember.
Rhoda and Gamora in Guardians of the Galaxy and Warcraft. Wow, that's confusing.
Yeah.
I like the movie. Massive step down to Duncan Jones because his last two movies are incredible.
Yeah,
I love that guy.
Awesome. Yeah. I like that. I don't know. I hope they keep it up.
Bowie's son.
Pardon me?
I only just found out he's David Bowie's son.
Yeah.
Completely unaware of that.
I found out when David Bowie died. I was like, oh yeah, okay, wow. I love his movies. That's insane.
Guess art runs in that family.
Yeah.
So there's
got the director down pat when they make the David Bowie biography.
Yeah.
that would be a hard movie for him to make. I'm assuming. So there's one more news story that
I just had one on Warcraft. Is that the first time that a video game movie has been made by someone that is actually a huge fan of the video game? Because it feels like up until now, video games were too new that the people making movies weren't really fans of video games.
I don't know what you're saying. Uwe Boll is a massive video game fan.
I was going to say, I think Uwe Boll had something that he liked about Blood Rain. I don't know what it was, but I would guess, yeah. I mean, I think you're right. I think it's so new of a medium, and I think so many of the other game movies have just been such blatant cash-ins.
Yeah.
I mean, going back to Super Mario Brothers, the movie.
Oh my god, that thing.
Tied onto the Warcraft movie. He was being interviewed after Source Code came out, and they started talking about video games, and he's like, I think if any game would make a good video game, it's Warcraft. Those games are amazing, and it's the first one made by someone that actually has a passion for the I know Guillermo del which I'm pretty sure I'm saying his name wrong.
Guillermo del Toro, yeah. Guillermo. Yeah.
Can't roll my R's. He really wanted to make a Shadow of the Colossus one, I think. But
yeah. And he's
nobody's ever going to give him the money to do that.
And he really wanted to do that project with Kojima that I guess is now Death Stranding. I'm not sure about that.
Stranding now. He's a character in it.
Yeah, I saw the Death
I think it's the
Stranding
next
trailer.
best thing.
I was like, whoa, man, Virtual Guillermo.
So they got Guillermo del Toro, Norman
What are
Reedus,
you doing
and
here?
Mads Mikkelsen.
Yeah,
all
those
together.
guys.
See, what's weird is if I honestly had to pick a video game that would translate well into a movie, it would be either Assassin's Creed or Tomb Raider. And Tomb Raider didn't, obviously, and I don't know if Assassin's Creed will, but I mean, I think it depends on how Assassin's Creed skews. Is it modern day or? Go ahead.
Because I think Assassin's Creed has the most potential because that is a game. I don't know if you guys followed the development much, but Ubisoft are actually the people making that movie. They didn't want to give it to another movie studio because they're like, you guys keep making shitty video game movies. This cast in it is amazing.
Yeah.
The director's amazing.
And
Marion,
and Michael Fassbender,
and
Jeremy
Fassbender.
Irons.
You've got Omar from The Wire in it.
Yeah.
I would love
Williams.
I would love for Uwe Boll to call them and be like, "Hey guys, I can make this movie."
But I can only make it in Germany for a tax
Yes.
write-off.
Only in Germany.
And also, I'm pretty sure Fassbender is also a huge, it's another one where he wanted to make the movie because he's a big fan of the series. So I think Assassin's Creed actually has potential to be really, really good.
I agree,
and
yeah.
That isn't just my fanboyism coming out.
I mean,
But
when you think about it, Kojima games are basically almost movies.
Yeah.
Like when I look at that Death Stranding trailer, I think it's Kojima's wet dream. B, I think it's totally could pass for a movie if you could. Like I've seen Last of Us. I've played Last of Us, but then I've seen all the movie. Somebody made a movie from The Last of Us on YouTube, and I watched that and was like, this could actually pass for a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, did anyone get the special edition of Metal Gear Solid 3? I think it was Subsistence or
Yeah.
something?
Yeah.
That had a fucking movie of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could just watch Metal Gear Solid 3 on that disc.
Yeah. You know, the reason I think that Assassin's Creed would work, and I'm thinking again, going back to my wife, there's only been 3 or 4 games that as I've been playing it, she's been like, let me know when you're going to play this so I can watch it because I want to know the story. Assassin's Creed was one of them. BioShock was one of them. I don't know if BioShock would make a good movie. I think that would be kind of hard. And then when I was playing, I think it was what was not the newest Hitman, but the one before that. Hitman Absolution. Yeah, she really got into that one for some reason. I think it was just because it looked so cool, very stylized. But so I think that
Sorry, you go.
I think that's kind of what a lot of the video game developers are really going to need to look for in a movie. It's just something that is visually attractive first, and then let the story go from there.
No.
I think one of the problems with turning BioShock into a movie is that it's very if we spoil BioShock that game's like 10 years old.
Oh yeah,
please go
I
ahead.
guess so.
The best bit in that is when you meet Andrew Ryan and the whole big twist of you being a slave and being mind controlled and everything, which works because you're doing everything.
Yeah.
And I think that loses a lot if you're watching someone else fall into that trap, because that bit affected me because it was like, holy shit, everything he's told me is wrong. I've been doing everything he's saying without questioning it because I'm just it makes you question what you were doing and why you play video games. And don't think. Yeah, sorry, you go.
Counterpoint, the best moment in that game is when you see Rapture for the first time when you're inside the
bathysphere
thingamabob, bathysphere. When she's saying the God and the government and all this Ayn Rand shit, and then it just reveals this fucking insane underwater city.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my god. That would work in the movie really well, I think, because it's a very visual medium also, right? And that moment is excellent. And when I showed it to people that are completely super not into video games, they were like, oh my god, this is fantastic. I was like, yeah, man. And they were like, okay, so what happens after that? I'm like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, crappy shooting.
Yeah.
That's
okay,
right.
but we all agree they have to completely redo the last third of that game to turn it into a movie, right?
Yeah.
Man, that final boss. How do you make that? How do you get that into a movie?
I'm not a huge fan of Bioshock at all, really, but yeah, they could make a movie.
Oh,
out
I
of it.
could go on about how much I hate Bioshock for a long time. I was trying to be polite.
Okay.
Yeah.
I really like that.
I'm one of those weird people who thinks that the Bioshock series got better with each installment.
Yes, the second one is better than the first one.
The ending of Infinite, I think, is probably, well, not the boss fight, but the very ending of Infinite, I think, is one of the top 5 moments, I think, to end a series for me. If it's truly the end.
It's pretty good, but it's kind of non-interactive, which is kind of a bummer because you're playing a video game.
I loathed Infinite. I really didn't like that game.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
the whole... Oh, fuck. No. It's
The whole
United
fuck.
States.
I think the whole fuck is a good thought.
I mean, Elizabeth's pretty and all, but I don't know if the game has any of that.
Eject.
So this was really well done, but like
I think
the storyline was
Let's steer away from that
Fucking.
particular avenue.
Yeah.
There's one more news story that I want to talk about, unless there are other news stories you guys want to talk about, and that is the shuttering of United Front Games. So United Front Games, they're probably best known for the open world action game Sleeping Dogs, which was, if I may editorialize a bit, an excellent open world action game. Sorry? Did they make anything else? They did make a few other things. That's one thing I was going to mention.
Somebody's researching right now.
Well, they worked on Mod Nation Racers, Little Big Planet Karting.
I know they did Master Chief Collection, right?
Yeah, they helped with the Master Chief Collection.
Oh boy.
Tomb Raider Definitive Edition.
They worked on a bunch of other people's stuff. That was Sleeping Dogs was their only proper game. Yeah. Oh, they made Smash and Grab. Well, did that actually come out?
That's exactly what I was about to mention. So normally when a video game studio shutters, it's not major news. It happens all the time. Companies do fail all the time. This one was weird because they had a game in early access. That game was Smash and Grab.
Mm-hmm.
It was a multiplayer online. I have no idea what it was. It's multiplayer brawler or
Riot
something.
game?
It looked kind of cool. It looked kind of like a Riot game combined with some loot collecting, crafting, something like that.
Does anyone remember that old game Rockstar made that was about you being Riot?
Yeah.
State of Emergency.
State of Emergency,
Yeah, it looked like a State of Emergency kind of game.
Yeah, so anyway, by the way, not to be confused with Riot Games, the makers of League of Legends. Anyway, so they're in the middle of making Smash and Grab. It was an early access. They'd just done a promotional push for it. And in fact, somebody had been interviewed from the studio, had been interviewed about the game, I think, that very day. And
wow.
They got a message on their phone that was like, oh shit.
Yeah, almost like that.
Yeah, like getting a text in the middle of the interview of your game. And,
Yeah. Like, doesn't matter. I'm going. I'm leaving.
So what people have conjectured is that Smash and Grab was their last. They were in huge, dire financial straits, and Smash and Grab was their last big push. And if that promotional weekend had been successful, and they'd raked in enough cash, then they'd be able to keep going. And it turns out that they couldn't rake in enough cash, and that's why they shut down. But yeah, it's sad to see that studio go. It likely means since they own the Sleeping Dogs IP, as far as I know, it wasn't owned by Square Enix.
Well, Sleeping Dogs came from True Crime, right?
Never say never.
No,
Yeah.
kind of. What it was originally, it had a different name altogether originally. Then, as it got, it started off as something else, like Black Orchid or something. And then, as it got made, I think they got involved with THQ before they went to shit. And that was when they're like, hey, we'll fund your game, but let's change the name to True Crime. Let's make it part of the True Crime series.
Yeah.
And then it started becoming True Crime Hong Kong, and then it became Sleeping Dogs after that. So it started as an original thing, then became a True Crime game, then went back to an original thing.
By the way, True Crime is Activision, not THQ.
Oh, actually, yeah. Sorry, my bad.
So Activision is the one who dropped them. They're like, yeah, we're not going to let you guys make this game. So they still had most of the assets and work done on it. And I shouldn't say most of the assets and work. They had some work on it, and they changed it into its own IP.
It's weird that that's their most famous game, and that's like...
By the way.
Pardon me?
Sorry?
Black Lotus was the original title for it before it became a True Crime game.
Yeah. It's strange that it's their most famous game, and it just went through such changes, and the road to Sleeping Dogs just probably laid with wasting a little bit of money and assets and all that stuff. So I'm not very shocked that they shut down. So I don't know.
Sleeping Dogs wasn't a massive commercial success,
Yeah.
but it did do decently
really
well.
good.
Yeah, it was a fan favorite. I would say it was like as cult favorite as games could be. That was probably one of them that kind of got in that cult classic
I mean,
type of
I
game.
love the game. I played it and enjoyed it. It sold apparently. It sold about 2 million copies.
That's
which
pretty good, yeah.
It's not what Square Enix wanted. Square Enix probably wanted,
we
5
talked
million.
we talked about Square Enix's ridiculous sales projections before, right?
They're like Dr. Evil. 1 bajillion sales. And
Like when they
people
were
are like,
disappointed in the what was it, the Tomb Raider reboot?
After sold like 3 million. Or
Yeah,
something?
they're like
3 million. They expect to do like 8 or 9.
Yeah.
It's not fucking fantasy.
They
They
wouldn't
wouldn't
do
do that.
Uncharted numbers, and fucking nothing does Uncharted numbers.
Yeah, you should read, like, if you go back and read, like, all of Square Enix's disappointments and all their game numbers, if you actually look at the game numbers, you're like, wait, they were disappointed by, like, I want to say Hitman Absolution sold like 1 million, they were disappointed in that, and it's like, no, that seems about right for a Hitman game, you know, like, I'm not an industry insider, but nothing they ever said surprised me.
Maybe they're like bleeding money and they're like, oh shit, we gotta make a bunch of money.
Yeah,
and then...
they were because they gave Final Fantasy 15 11 years to cook or whatever. That's why they were bleeding money.
It's almost like the Final Fantasy series is a chain on the whole.
It's like dragging everybody else down.
Yeah, dragging everyone down, like the movie Spirits Within now Final Fantasy series. I don't know. Man, that thing is weird.
What about the Sleeping Dogs like HD edition this year? Was that before or after they closed?
No,
That
before.
was much before.
Yeah, much before.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, they it's sad to see, a studio that produced a game I liked close down, especially under these really bizarre circumstances. Usually, like, with a studio like Crytek, which is probably, let's face it, going to shut down next year. Like, we see that coming. With United Front Games, there's just no warning whatsoever. Usually you can tell when the studio's in dire straits, and this just didn't seem like the case here, so that's why it did come as a shock.
I found an old article just real quick on Square Enix talking about Tomb Raider and Hitman. So Tomb Raider reboot managed 3.6 million. That's pretty damn good numbers, right? And
Yeah.
It says the publisher hoped to sell between 5 and 6 million copies of Tomb Raider in its first month. And remember, this is Xbox only, right?
And oh my god,
No. The first Tomb Raider was cross
No,
platform.
Tomb Raider
Was it? Okay.
cross-platform, yeah.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah,
but-
Tomb Raider 2, that was.
The weird thing about that is that you're releasing a reboot. You should be like, I don't know how this is gonna go, and not like, oh, we want Call of Duty numbers.
Yeah,
man.
and they said that Hitman had the potential to sell 4.5 to 5 million units in the same
No,
period.
it didn't.
No,
Never did.
stop that.
In the same
Bad
period that it only
PR.
sold like
Bad
2 to
PR.
2.5 million, and 2 million to me for Hitman is really damn good.
Like, I wouldn't expect a Hitman to sell more than 1.5 million.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the fact that they expected 6 million out of a Tomb Raider reboot to me is just insane. I mean, that's like somebody at that company needs to be like, no, dude, that's like.
Well, they looked at it and they thought they had a competitor to Uncharted and wanted it to do Uncharted numbers because they're insane.
Yeah.
I'm
yeah.
gonna make an indie game, and I'm gonna be like, oh, the target estimate is 4 million.
Just like No Man's Sky.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want, just lie and you can sell your game you can sell as many copies of your indie game as you want.
But in the meantime, they're throwing all the money down the Final Fantasy 15 and the Final Fantasy 14 black hole, and they
Well,
yeah.
Final Fantasy 14's making money now, isn't it?
Yeah, 14 is pretty good. 14 is going strong.
That's one of the few
Like,
subscription
completely
MMOs, right?
renewed it.
Yeah.
Was at least when I quit.
Oh, you
did
actually
you-
started.
Completely remade that game because it was shit when they launched it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then it was pretty good, and then the expansion came out and made it even better, I hear, and people are really into it, so,
Yeah. So, are there any other news stories from this year in gaming that you guys wanted to discuss?
Oh, I'm sure we missed a bunch.
Yeah. So, listeners, please let us know what we missed. We probably missed some big ones. But I think now let's move on to discussing. Sorry.
open for angry emails.
Listeners, send your emails to
Please send
we do not care at
gamescast@nonexistentdomain.com.
yes.
Yeah, so let's move on to discussing our favorite games of the year.
Woo.
Woo.
Yay.
All right. So we all play a lot of games, and we all played a lot of games this year. There were a lot of great games that came out this year, some disappointing games as well. What I want to know from you guys is, what were your top 3 games of the year? Let's start with you, Ben. What were your 3 favorite games of 2016?
Put me on the spot, why don't you?
Yeah.
So Street Fighter V, probably up there. But we already talked about that, so I'm going to kind of skip over that. Killer Instinct Season 3 was amazing. Do any of you guys play Killer Instinct?
No, I just heard it was really good.
Yeah.
What they did,
I've heard that the previous seasons weren't as good, but that this one was an improvement.
well, the previous seasons you were wrong, because the previous seasons were amazing.
Shame on you.
Basically, what they did this season, which upset a bunch of people, but also kind of makes sense, every season they've released 8 new characters with 8 new stages and 8 new themes, kind of thing. This time they did the 8 new characters. 3 of them were guest characters though, and only 4 new stages got released. But what they did instead of that is they completely overhauled all the lighting and graphics and texture quality and all that kind of shit.
That's cool.
So the game just looks generally a lot better than it did. But what they did this season though is they've been doing different things with the stories for each season. And this season they basically made XCOM. Like, you get a giant world map and you choose 3 characters and then you get little missions and you go all over the world and you have to like fight and keep the level of corruption down, and you have to end up summoning 7 of these characters' omens you have to beat, and each one you beat ends up taking a buff off the final boss. So if you fight him without fighting the omens, he's impossible to beat. And it's really complex and the most in-depth fighting game thing I've ever seen.
Interesting. And who made this season? Was it Iron Galaxy?
Iron Galaxy did season 2 and 3. Yeah.
Dave Lang represent. Okay.
Yeah. Much better than that Arkham Knight port.
Well, you know, you win some, you lose some.
12-person studio. I'm surprised they got given that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, props to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like, I think the characters are actually kind of the weakest they've had of the seasons, because like every other season has had a character I really loved. Like I mainly played Sadira, and then I really liked Arya in season 2, and didn't really grab anyone from season 3. Like, it's still kind of But the whole fucking story mode, it's called Shadow Lords, by the way. The Shadow Lords mode is insane, and like, so they also added in like kind of the box thing that we were talking about with like Overwatch and shit before, where you buy card packs and you can buy like weird little Pokemon things that float behind you and give you extra abilities in the fights, and it's just so much shit is there, and it's really, really impressive.
Okay.
And that is definitely like one of my top 3 games.
What are the other 2?
Sorry?
I asked, what are your other 2?
Street Fighter V, I think was this.
I actually just finished it, Ronin, on the PS4. I think this technically did come out 2015 on PC, but it only just got a console release like November. It is a turn-based action platformer, which is
that one. Yeah, that looks pretty cool.
Before.
Yeah.
It's so basically how that works, if that's confusing you, is you move with the left stick, you jump with the right stick, which as soon as you put it, it freezes time, and you can like aim a jump arc and like complete the jump. And then when you actually get into a fight, every about half a second, you like get half a second of movement, and then time freezes, and there'll be like laser sights pointing where like the characters are about to shoot, all that kind of shit, and you have to basically figure out where you can move in your next half a second, where there won't be bullets in that half a second, and like attack people and knock them down again. It gets really, really, really complex, but it's just something I've never seen before, and I really, really enjoy that in games.
Yeah.
When did that come out? Because it's like a long time ago, like in this year, but was it January or something? Because I remember that. Oh, really?
Yeah, November on the PS4, but it came out in June of 2015 on the PC.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what okay, yeah.
It's actually made by a guy from Flying Wild Hog, the guys that make Shadow Warrior, who apparently just basically decided to make his own weird, insane.
Yeah, it's from Poland.
Yeah. Also, the main character looks like Akira from Rival Schools, and that does a lot for me because she's the coolest.
Cool.
Nice. And so, what was your top game of the year?
My top
I
game?
guess they're not ranked, but
Top game
Oh,
of
but
the
this
year.
one is
Good
good.
with you, yeah.
Inside. Holy
Nice.
shit,
Oh,
Inside.
Nice.
Like, I was not a fan of Limbo. I think how you die and then come back almost instantly kind of kills any of the tension that it seems to be trying to build. So I kind of went into Inside with a bit of trepidation. I sat down and played the entire thing in one go. My wife was sitting there watching the entire time because she was so enthralled in the game. How many of you guys actually played Inside?
I played it to completion, yes.
Yeah. Anyone else?
No.
No, I haven't had the chance to play it yet. It's on my wish list, and maybe I'll get to play it before the end of the year. Yeah, so unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, basically it is the standard kind of physics-based platform puzzle game where you're pushing blocks and doing that shit. But it when did Inside come out? That was a 360 game, wasn't it?
You mean Limbo?
Limbo.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a Summer of Arcade for Xbox.
Yeah, it came out in 2010.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2010 Summer of Arcade.
Making this game for 6 years. They've been making a single 3-hour-long puzzle platformer for 6 years, which is insane to me. But the amount of polish and just everything works so perfectly, and every puzzle I felt was at that perfect point where you don't get stuck on it. You're not oh god, this is just frustrating me. But you spend probably about 5-10 minutes working on it. Then you have that oh my god, obviously moment, and you get to keep going. And it tells a really weird story with no dialogue. There's no text. There's no nothing. It's just so it's one of those very rare games where I sit back and think, what could they have done to make this game better? And there's nothing. I even feel, I know one of your complaints was that it was a bit short. I feel if it had gone longer, the game would kind of start to drag.
Yeah.
There's nothing more they needed to do.
I had a criticism of it being short, but let me tell you this, without any spoilers, absolutely without any spoilers, let me tell you, end of the game, absolutely the best moment I've seen in the video game.
I've been dancing around that. Holy shit, that game is strong.
Yeah, that ending is strong as shit. So check that out.
Also, even just it has this really bleak, kind of very simple art style, but it all works really well. It has, it kind of reminds me of, old 50s illustrations, I guess, with, kind of simple gradient with no real detail on anything.
Yes, yes. I know what you're saying.
The art style looks somewhat similar to Kentucky Route Zero.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, with the sort of geometric angles.
The animation is superb. The amount of animations the kid that you play as has, just for every little thing, when he starts, going through mud that gets deeper and he starts, swinging his arms more, and it's,
one more thing about the graphics, because you said that it's simple geometrical shapes, but each, scene that you put in looks absolutely amazing. It looks really carefully handcrafted. It has
code.
Yeah, it's cinematic. It's very evocative.
Yeah,
it's
every single.
Yeah.
I completely skipped over. Didn't even think of that point, but you're totally right. Every single time you every screenshot of that game could be a print that you sell, basically.
Yeah.
And
very pretty.
Does things where it has. I don't know how to say this without spoiling things, but it has a puzzle that you do early in the game that introduces a mechanic, which then doesn't get brought back ever in the game until you get the secret ending, which then reveals a whole shitload about the plot.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Now, the one criticism I'll say a little bit here is that the secret ending really adds a lot to the game, but it's a real pain in the ass to get.
Oh, actually, no, you're totally right. I can't imagine getting that secret ending without looking it up on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like, the amount of shit you need to go through, like, decoding sound files and shit.
Yeah. It's insane.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of work to get there. Yeah, so
Okay,
those were some.
to give you a general
go ahead.
idea of the secret plot, you have to find these little hidden items all through the game, right? They play a sound file. You need to record that sound file, then break it down to figure out like an up, down, left, right code combination that's like 30 things long or something to get through a door that you can't even see.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sounds like fun.
Sounds like a secret for the internet. Internet likes this kind of secret because they
Pretty
will
much.
find out everything about a game. So no, you
Yeah,
know.
they'll cut it to bits and then figure it out. So science is bad.
Mentions?
Mhm.
Like, just really
Oh
good
yeah,
examples.
sorry. Mention some honorable mentions. Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure.
Honey Rose Underdog Fighter Extraordinaire, amazing visual novel / beat 'em up fighting game, which is weird, and you should check it out. It's free on Steam. Hard and Slash is this really great roguelike character action game with a really amazing story that you should definitely check out. And what's the other one? Recore. A lot of people slept on that game. That game's amazing. You should play it.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I've heard Recore in particular, especially the start of the game or the first few hours of it are really good. And for some people, it got repetitive towards the end, but the basic gameplay loop I've heard.
Should really
was
give it a
very
That game
shot.
just
I've
feels
got it.
really good to move around in. Like, it's like a 3D Mega Man X, basically. It's really fun.
Yeah, I've been thinking of pulling the trigger on that one, and getting it at some point. So science is bad. What were your
Yeah.
top 3 games of the year?
Oh man, now I was about to say like number 3. I share my number 3 with somebody else. So I'm
That's
going
fine.
to.
You're going first, so you
No,
get to
no.
skip them over.
You know what? I'm going to skip that. I'm going to say something about my number 4. Because my number 3 is Firewatch. It's a fantastic game, but we will discuss it later. I
Yeah.
want to say a little bit about Doom, because that's my number 4.
All right.
And
Sure.
I really am a big fan of the original Doom. I'm a big fan of Doom 2, of course, and I'm a moderately I like Doom 3. Okay, you know. But this one is like, this Doom, I had no expectation. Okay, no expectations because I didn't think it would pull it off. Basically, nobody that worked on the games I liked from it is, you know, right now in id Software. So, like, I
Yeah.
don't know
Didn't
that studio.
John Carmack leave and everything?
Yeah.
John Carmack is with Oculus now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I was like skeptical, and when I saw the, you know, QuickTime eventy filled like trailer, what I thought about it was, oh, okay, it looked like QuickTime events. I was like, I don't know about this. But then I kind of heard some, you know, good things about it. I played it, and I was like, oh god. Like, the first 5 minutes of that game tells you exactly what it's gonna be, and it's pretty straightforward. You're going to kill a lot of demons. I tell you. Like,
That is one of the best openings to a game I've
Yeah.
ever played.
it
Doesn't
freaking
he
says,
like receive instructions and just like ignore them and goes
Yeah.
off
Yeah.
and does his own thing?
yeah, it says demonic invasion in progress, which is on the computer screen. It says actually that the obviously evil voice in your ear tells you like, we should work together. And he's like, takes that monitor, rips it off, and like chucks it across the room and says, fuck that. Like, he doesn't say that, but it's obvious. Like, this
Yeah,
guy
Doom
doesn't-
Guy's silent from what I
Yeah, Doom Guy is silent, but he doesn't take no shit. And he likes the music. It's fantastic. You get into the elevator.
Nick Gordon,
Sorry?
the
Nick
guy that
Gordon,
did the music,
composer?
Nick Gordon, he
Oh.
is also the guy that did the soundtrack to Killer Instinct, surprisingly enough.
Oh,
He is
fantastic.
Fucking incredible.
Yeah, it's fucking incredible. You get into the elevator, you mess up the elevator because why not? You punch it, and then you start the level, and the music like coincides with you reloading your gun, and that's fantastic. That's you get so pumped up at the beginning of a game, and the game works so well. It's very fast, it's very fluid, it's very brutal. Somebody that came up with the idea of regenerating your health by killing demons was like a freaking genius. I think that's a thing that would work in original Doom. If original Doom came with that mechanic, it might have been even better than it is. I love Doom. I love that you have to like distribute health, think about health packs and if I should take it or not. But that mechanic of killing demons and collecting health is just so good. And I also like the traversal in that game. You're very fast, you're very quick, you're very agile. You can get where you want to go. There's a lot of parkour in the game. It's just a blast.
You have to be the fastest first-person shooter character in like the past 10 years in that game or something.
Yeah, you're like zooming through the environment.
And after Call of Duty and Halo came out, I don't think there's ever been a character at that kind of speed again. It's borderline. Like, I got the demo on Xbox One, and I am waiting to get a computer that's strong enough to run it because that game doesn't seem properly playable on a controller.
Yeah. Well, it kind of does actually. It's not that bad because you don't need that much precision. You don't need quick reflexes, and it helps with a mouse to turn around very quickly. But when you're shooting demons, you're usually shooting them from like the guns are very like they have broad like range. Like you don't have to aim that much. It's
very forgiving.
Yeah, it's very forgiving. It's more about like, okay, I have to manage like these 3 types of demons are attacking. I know this guy does this. I know this guy has this pattern, and I'm going to like, jump 2 times here. I'm going to get from behind this pinky demon, which is great. Pinky demons can only be attacked from the, from their butt. Their butt is very soft. You can mess it up. So you gotta get behind them. The Kako demons are like flying. You have to watch out for them. They're pretty tough. And it's like taking cues from the original Doom. Each enemy has some sort of pattern, some sort of like logic behind them. And you kind of like, depending on what kind of 3 types or 4 types of enemies you get in a room, you kind of have to work around that and, create your strategy around that. One thing I'm going to say is also the campaign is excellent. It's fantastic. B, I agree. The second part is I agree. It's a little bit demanding on the PC. It's, I can't play it on full settings. It's a bit of a, it looks really pretty, but yeah.
It's a game.
Even with the Vulkan update?
Even with the Falcon update, I had some troubles. I can't play it on ultra. I play it on like medium high, let's say, and it still looks fantastic. And I very much recommend it. So that's Doom for me on the 4th place.
Got to say about Doom is one thing that's been bugging me a lot in games is how long it takes you to actually get into the act of playing the game. Like all the cutscenes and everything. I think in Doom it's like 3 seconds.
Yeah, you're basically...
You start the game up and you have a gun and you're shooting demons. There's like no fucking around.
Yeah, I hate having to sit through splash screens for forever.
You're naked on the table. You're naked on the slab. That's how you begin the game. And then the first thing you see is a demon approaching you. The Doom guy kills one demon, takes his gun, and you're in. So it's like almost instant.
It's like under 10 seconds before you have your gun and you're killing things.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So that's Doom. I very much enjoyed it. I want to talk about it a little bit. I know Firewatch will get its due, so I want to talk about Doom a little bit.
Yeah. So what's your second favorite game?
Yeah. So my second favorite game is The Witness. Now I really like puzzle games. I'm a fanatic. I love them. I think that some of my favorite games are puzzle games, and
same here. My favorite game of last year was actually Parallax, which was another first-person puzzler. But tell me about The Witness.
Yeah, so The Witness was criticized a little bit because seemingly it's a very simple game. It's kind of inspired by Myst a little bit, but Jonathan Blow, the creator of the game, basically said, what if the Mist wasn't as much about like looking at goofy puzzles that don't make really sense and then figuring them out from their insane logic, but just like these closed little systems that you have to learn and that make sense when you progress through the environment, that one puzzle follows the other and it kind of progresses, the puzzles get more intense, but they all follow a certain logic, and that's fantastic. Each puzzle, there's no tutorial in the game, but each puzzle teaches you a certain mechanic. And each substantial, each next puzzle is like works on the mechanics of the previous one. So it's like a slow escalation, and sometimes you hit a barrier because now I'm going to explain what the puzzles basically are a little bit. It's a grid, like it's a maze puzzle basically. All the puzzles in the game are variation on kind of weird maze puzzles. You have
so you find a line,
screen.
Right?
Yeah, you draw a line from one part of the grid to the other.
Basically. And you have LCD screens all over the island, right? So you have these LCD screens. It's an island. It's on Mist, right? So you are free to go anywhere you want. There are environments here and there. There's nothing to gate your progress except your knowledge. So that reminded me a little bit about Super Metroid and Castlevania, Metroidvania games, but you're not gaining abilities. Your character is not gaining abilities, but you as a player are gaining knowledge that grants you keys to open up puzzles that you had no idea how to get around before.
There's
it's
no
fantastic.
artificial limits on you can't beat this puzzle until you do that. If you had a walkthrough, you could just go straight to the end kind of thing.
Yes, you can go straight
it's
to
not
the end.
like Anti-Chamber, which has that Metroidvania flavor, but there are some gated puzzles.
Yes, so basically it is a little bit like Metroidvania, but the ability you have to progress with the game is just your knowledge, the knowledge how to solve the puzzle, because certain puzzles have different iconography, and you look at them and at first glance you if you never seen this puzzle before, it's maybe complicated, and you're I don't know what these signs mean. But 5 hours later, you see a very simple puzzle that has only one of these icons on it, and you're okay, there's 2 ways to solve this puzzle. It's very simple. There's 3 lines I can do. So it's obviously going to be that. Oh no, okay, it's going to be that. Oh no, okay, it's going to be that. Okay, it worked. Why did it work? Okay, I kind of, it's very hard.
You kind of work it out from how you made the solution.
Yes. And then you move on to the next puzzle that's a little bit more complicated, and then you learn by doing. And then you come back to that.
What that simple is. That's cool.
Yeah, and then you
the
go
game
back
teaches
to that.
you how to play it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And you go back to that puzzle from 5 hours ago, and you're oh my god, I can move on from here because I've learned how to do this from this other part of the island. And there are you think that these simple maze puzzles wouldn't go as crazy, but man, they go really insane. I won't spoil anything too much, but you have to sometimes look at your environment in a certain way. Sometimes the environment helps you solve the puzzle. Sometimes it's kind of there's also kind of a Tetris puzzle inside of that. It's insane. It gets really.
I have seen some of those environment puzzles, and they're fucking genius. Hey.
Yes, and it makes you with Braid, the previous game from Jonathan Blow. It makes when you solve a puzzle, it makes you feel like the smartest motherfucker on earth. Oh my god, I'm this was a very hard puzzle and very clever, and I solved it, and I'm the super smart person. Obviously you're not, because people are solving this puzzle over, but it makes you feel like the smartest person. And that's
one thing I've got to ask about it, because I haven't played it. Does it go up its own arse as much as Braid did?
Yes. Unfortunately, the story and all of that bullshit, I don't like.
I
It's
think Bloat is an amazing game designer. He makes
yeah.
fantastic. Like Braid as a game is amazing. As a
Yeah.
writer, that dude needs someone else.
Yeah,
Like-
oh god. This
I
game
feel like Jonathan Blow should make games and just not talk about games.
maybe so. Although I will say this game doesn't have a story really. But what it has that is going up its own ass is these little recordings all over the island. They're little collectibles that you don't really have to do. There's no incentive to really do them. But you can collect them. And there's like quotes by different artists and like musings on life and philosophy. And you're like, I don't freaking care. Like this.
Stuff I saw of that did actually seem kind of interesting because the entire point of the game is about perspective, right?
Yeah.
Like, and all of them are apparently like, there's always one like a philosopher offering a perspective, and then for every piece of that, there will always be a different philosopher musing on the opposite perspective, like of
Right.
that same problem, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but
Like, I thought that's
honestly,
interesting.
yeah, but honestly, when you're playing the game, you don't care. Like,
That's fair.
yeah, that's a cool idea, but it there's no context. There's nothing. The island is very beautiful. It's very simple. The graphics are very simple. They're very like also geometrical, very simple. And it's very pretty, but there's almost no story. Like there's a little bit like weird stuff here and there that maybe like, okay, sure, maybe something happened here. Maybe you could figure something out. But there's no incentive to figure it out. It's not very important to the end of the game.
Yeah. That
And when
kind of
you finish the
ambiguity
game,
can be an asset.
yeah, and when you finish the game, I cannot express how disappointed I was in the ending. Like there's no ending basically. The puzzles are so satisfying. They're so satisfying, and you feel like the ending should be something more because the puzzles are sometimes more satisfying than most of the endings of every other game I've played this year. Like,
Okay,
oh my god, I've
about
completed
this
it.
game, right?
I'm not sure we're talking about video games anymore.
You said
Like-
Sorry.
it was just as good if it was just like a tablet game that was just the puzzles.
What? Okay, so I'm going to say this. Like, I'm going to finish the thought, and I'm going to address your question. Like, okay, so I'm going to complete a region. It's going to spark something because you have to complete 7 regions to like finish the game, right? You can approach these regions in any order you want, but you have to finish 7 of them to complete the game. There are 11 regions in the game overall. And when I finish the region, I sometimes feel like, oh shit, that last puzzle was the cleverest thing ever, and I feel incredible. So that's what I'm talking about. That's that feeling of accomplishment. It's more like satisfying than many other games. I finished my other games and I was like, oh, all right, okay,
It's like the
that's
puzzle
fine.
version of beating a Dark Souls boss.
Yes, it feels very satisfying, and then the ending is absolute garbage. So that's not great. And then you asked about the tablet thing. Because of how unassuming the game is, and like there's environmental puzzles, right? The environment sometimes is how you solve the puzzle.
Yeah.
Look at the
Yeah.
environment, and it's so unassuming. You don't know if it's going to be part of the puzzle. Like the fact that you're walking through this world and you don't know if this is going to be part of the solution. You know, you never know what you're gonna get. And-
Oh yeah, I get you.
Yeah,
And-
you need those
and it-
environmental cues.
And I actually said that Inside had one of the best, I think the best sequence this year, the last part, and I still stand by that. But what happened in The Witness? There are secret things that you can do in The Witness, and they never tell you how to reach them, how to go at them, nothing. But there's this genius thing it does. When you play The Witness for hours and hours at an end, you know how the Tetris game, you play Tetris and then you close your eyes, you kind of see Tetris?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel that this game I've heard really burrows into people's brains.
Yes, and that's how it
Is it the thing
shows
with
you
the
the
river you're
secret
talking
stuff.
about?
What?
Is it that thing with the river that you're talking about?
I don't know what you're talking
Like it was
about.
one of those secret puzzles that's a river.
Oh yes, also that. Yes, but with me it was on this giant desert. There's a desert environment, and I just stood on a rock for a second because I was I was eating a sandwich or something. And I was looking at the ground, and I was like, wait a second. Wait a second. And I was like, holy shit. Like something connected, sparked in my brain. It's like I saw something in the ground and was like, oh, this is amazing. And I didn't even know I could do that. I just pressed A on the controller. I didn't know something was going to happen, and it happened. And I felt like, whoa, this is amazing. I didn't know I could feel like that in like an abstract puzzle game, because that's what it is mostly. You're just going from, LCD screen to
Yeah, and I
LCD.
guess you'd lose that if it was just like a tablet game, wouldn't you?
But then, those
Yeah,
moments.
you need that exploration. Yeah.
Yeah, that exploration moment, when that happens, holy crap, it's amazing. So there's parts of this game that absolutely wouldn't work on a tablet. I think best parts of this game wouldn't work on a tablet.
What about your favorite game of the year? Would that work on a tablet?
Okay, Picross 3D 2. Yes, that would work on a tablet. Now, I'm a big Picross fan. Sorry, Picross 3D 2 is my top game of the year. It sounds lame, but I played.
Don't apologize for it.
No,
I'm sorry, I actually have to look this up to see what Picross is, because I've never even heard of this franchise.
So I'm going to describe a little bit. I bought every Picross there is on the 3DS, and I bought the Picross on the DS, and I bought the Picross 3D on the DS. So basically, basic Picross, a 2D Picross, is basically a very simple game, like a logic puzzle game that's aching a little bit to Sudoku. Where you have numbers, where you have a grid. I don't know how to explain it. A simple grid where you have numbers at the top and numbers on the left side, and these numbers help you to determine where you have to put, where you have to mark like black dots.
It's like Minesweeper.
Yeah, a little bit like Minesweeper. That's a good analogy also, but there's no Minesweeper has. There's no death. Well, there is a little bit. When you screw up, it counts as a fail. But basically, when Minesweeper, you have to start with this first move that that's a little bit lucky, because you can always click a mine, right? Yeah, there's absolutely no randomness in Picross. Everything you do is logic based. You can fill out the whole thing without ever making a guess. It's all logic. So Picross 3D takes it another step a little bit, and it takes that game into a 3D space where you're like, there's a block, a gray block, right? A 3D gray block, like and then you're chipping away parts of this block to reveal a sculpture underneath it, which is pretty cool, and it's really and then Picross 3D 2 even does a little bit more than that, which I'm not going to get into that, because I'm not going to explain how a 3D puzzle game works. Like I can't explain it in an audio medium. I had to show it to you, but it's what I'm going to say about it. It's very satisfying. If you ever like puzzle games, Sudoku games, any kind of game like that, you're going to fall in love in this game. And there's hundreds and hundreds of puzzles, and each of them is very clever, because it's very difficult to make these puzzles. I assume it's like
It's impressive they can design so many and so well.
Yes, and each of them.
Trailer for it, and like puzzles aren't really my thing, but I can see this being one of those games that you just start playing and then like you look at the clock and it's 5 hours later or something.
I did that. It's you get obsessed by it. I take my I don't care about my 3DS. I don't care about it. A year ago And no, even a couple of months ago, I could have thrown it in the garbage and I wouldn't even notice. I don't play games on my 3DS. I bought it. I played games I wanted to play on it a couple of 2 years ago, and then was done with it. With this game, I'm carrying my goddamn 3DS with me everywhere I go, which is insane. Every chance I get, I kind of, take out that goddamn 3DS. People look at me weird because what the hell is this weird artifact that I haven't seen in years? And I'm going, and I'm like, whatever, I'm just playing my Picross here, fuck you. So, it's fantastic. I'm obsessed by it. I'm obsessed with it. It's probably the best logic-based game I've played. So yeah, that's easily my favorite game of the year. And I hope that I'm going to chime in a little bit when we're going to talk a little bit about Firewatch. So that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah.
Also, I mentioned.
What are your honorable mentions? Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, honorable mentions. So, Zero Time Dilemma. That's a 999 series game. I love that series. It's a kind of visual novel thing. If you never played 999, play 999. It's coming out on PC soon. From all these games, play just 999. It's the best one. It has a great twist at the end of it. If you even a little bit like visual novels. I also have Overwatch, which I really like. I play with my brother a lot. He got really mad because people were whooping our ass at one point. I kept playing. I really like it. And Stardew Valley, which I really like. Harvest Moon. This is like Harvest Moon, but even better. So that's it.
Yeah. So Kappa, what are your favorite games of the year?
Oh man, I don't know. I feel like mine are pretty mainstream, I guess. For my third favorite,
Let's get some variety. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
My third favorite, I'm gonna go with The Division, and this is with a big caveat to it. There's a big time in the middle of The Division's life cycle where I hated it. At launch, it was pretty fun. Had a lot going on, a lot of exciting new stuff going on to it. Really fun game. 2 or 3 patches came along, and the game was terrible. It was very broken, a ton of hackers, everything that could go wrong with the game. Really just terrible all around. Then come back around to now, which is where they've patched it again to, I think it's 1.5 or 1.6 right now, and it is awesome. It's kind of like the game that they always wanted to make and always wanted to deliver in so many ways. I'm really enjoying coming back around with it, and I'm not alone. Absolute ton of people have coming back to it. So yeah, that's really kind of one that I think, had they not kept up with the support, I never would have thought back to it. But this recent patch has been really, really good, and the fact that they're still supporting it and keeping it up really has me happy with where the game's going. Spent a ton of time to it. Got a couple people playing it. They actually have a free-to-play week this week, so I've been kind of helping some of my friends along, as they get gear and stuff like that. It's got 2 mechanics in it, I think, that are really interesting right now. One of them is the Dark Zone, which is kind of like so it's an optional area. You go in there, and it's not necessarily that you can shoot other, players. You can, but if you do, your flag is what's called rogue, and then there's a bounty set on your head, and everybody basically tries to kill you. So it's a pretty interesting mechanic. People running around, killing NPCs, getting gear. Is that guy next to you going to help you kill that NPC, or is he going to shoot you in the back as soon as your health gets low? A lot of that going on. In order to get your gear out of there, you have to call in a helicopter. It takes about 2 minutes to show up. The helicopter shows up. You put your gear on a rope. Other people can come along. They can put their gear on the rope. You can cut the rope and try to steal everybody's gear. That's the Dark Zone. Very, very weird, asymmetrical, I guess, PvP, but super fun. They added a new mode in this latest patch called Survival, where it's a loot game. It's very Diablo. You get lots of weapons, a lot of min-maxing going on, stuff like that. Survival throws all that out the window. No skills, no weapons, no gear, drops you in an area where you've got basically 3 or 4 timers running. One is a disease, an infection that's going to kill you in about 2 hours. Another one is cold. If you go to certain areas where it's colder, outdoors, things like that, the cold will kill you. And 3 is obviously other players running around. So you're scrambling and scraping and scavenging to create, gear, to create skills, to create weapons, create armor, all that sort of stuff, while trying to get to that dark zone area, find a sample for the disease that's wiped out New York, and extract it via a helicopter. So kind of that promise of so many survival games, but in a bite-sized 2-hour window, that I find really, really fun and very addictive. So those two portions of the game have really balanced out what I think is kind of just an okay shoot and loot in other ways, and I really got into the story. I got into to everything else, but I enjoy the game. But I think those two things have really rounded out the experience to kind of push it into a game I would totally recommend you buy right now at 25%. I think it's 50% off on Steam right now during the free weekend. I want to say it's like $20. So I mean that would be something I would recommend. Number two would
currently
be
sitting at $25.
Yeah, it's a pretty good deal.
It won't be $25 by the time this comes out, but it's $25 right now. If you want to
so jokes on you listeners.
For the two of you, yeah. Yeah.
I'm buying it. Hell.
I enjoy it. I really do. And if you do need help, look me up. I'm on Uplay pretty much all the time. So I have it's a pretty strong recommend for me, even if you're just looking for a third-person cover shooter that does some interesting things with the mechanics and is very well supported by the developers. They're constantly overhauling entire areas of the game. The cheaters are getting banned pretty steadily, so it's a lot easier now to recommend than it was even 2 months ago. So that's kind of why it probably would have been about 8 or 9 on my list, but that's why it's popped back up to 3. Number 2 is Titanfall 2. I also listed this as like my surprise of the year. I wasn't expecting to love this game anywhere near as much as I did, but I am in love with this game. It's probably my favorite shooter, at least in the past 10 years. Super fast moving on foot as a pilot. The single player is amazing. They do some very, very, very cool set piece things that I would say tops anything out of Call of Duty. What's up?
That research lab level?
Yeah, cause and effect, or effect and cause. Oh, man.
Causes, yeah.
That is the best thing I've played in a long time.
Yeah, you know what? It's weird because it comes back and it is kind of reminiscent of something like Portal or something, but doing it in that kind of a game.
Yeah, and it's very much like Quantum. It's basically Quantum Conundrum.
Right, but the game tells its story in a cool way. It doesn't beat you over the head with.
Guacamole is my point of reference for that level. Like the reality shifting in Guacamole.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit like that, too. Also, there was a similar level in Dishonored 2 this year.
Well, but I just love how that game said, here, we're going to give you a bunch of backstory, a lot of exposition, but we're going to do it in a way that isn't just somebody over a radio telling you what happened here. Go explore this area, and you can shift back and front to the future and the present and stuff. And you kind of go find this MacGuffin, but it does it in such a cool way. And that very end of that stage where the time is frozen and you're running along the debris, and it's just a neat scene.
Did you play Quantum Break at all this year?
Yeah.
That's like straight out of that game, and it was awesome in that game, and it's awesome in Titanfall.
Yeah, but you don't expect it in Titanfall. That's the thing. I mean, and then there's some other really good stages. That stage where you're running along that flying ship. You basically start at the end of the ship and then have to work your way to the front of it.
It was like
that was actually one of my favorites.
Across another ship.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, they're like trying to figure out how to get your Titan to you the whole time while you're running around scrambling. That was a really cool level. Even that first level where you get your Titan and you kind of feel that bond, and then you power him up and yeah, and then the level ends with you taking on like 3 or 4 Titans. There's that war.
My favorite level, my favorite level is Effect and Cause because that's fucking amazing. But one of my favorite bits is the level that's the factory building the houses, and you start off and you're just like, what the fuck are they building? Then as you get further, it's like, these are houses? What the fuck is going on? You find, like, that city sideways on a wall?
Yeah, you're climbing a city sideways. Yeah, it's...
What the fuck is going on here? Like, what the fuck even is this?
Yeah, that was wild.
It ends up what it was, and it's like, holy shit, I have never done anything even approaching what this just was.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I don't know if I should ruin it. We've already ruined enough of it. But yeah, then they finally flip it in the correct orientation, and that's where you do the final boss fight for that level.
Yeah,
that I think was a really neat reconfiguring of space.
It's a weird way to describe how I enjoyed being disoriented by that. Do you know what I mean? Like there was literally times where like, wait a minute, is that up or down, or like you couldn't tell because you were looking at a wall that was basically like it was like something out of Inception, right, where the city folds in on itself or whatever. You're like, wait a minute, am I looking up or am I looking left? I have no idea right now.
You guys are making me want to play this game.
It's great.
Oh man. Yeah, we just spoiled it totally for you.
It's not really spoiling. It's something that you got to experience to really. Yeah. But as far as a single player,
I actually went in completely blind. I didn't know that there was time travel in the game at all.
Yeah, it's a good game to go in blind, but I think that experiencing a lot of that stuff in Titanfall is it's one of those games that like I kind of feel like I've been kind of almost pushing my friends into because it came out at the same time as Battlefield, right? And everybody's like, "Oh my god, Battlefield!"
Battlefield 1, yeah.
Yeah, but
is actually good.
Yeah, it's good. I've got both, but I mean, by far, when I'm feeling an FPS right now, I'm loading in Titanfall. I've been able to respawn, I think is what they call it, regenerate or something like that. So I went all the way through the leveling one time, and now I restarted with like prestiging like in Call of Duty basically. So I'm working my way back through a second time in the multiplayer. My advice would be, unless you're very hardcore in the game, don't regenerate. Just stay at that top level.
I
played a few rounds of it, and I was always really bad at it.
It sounds weird because I had that exact experience. Like I was getting like maybe 2 or 3 kills, and a lot of it is learning the map. A lot of it is learning the type of game you're playing, and is that the right fit for you? And a lot of it is just go out and kill the NPCs until you get your Titan, because it's a different game, right? Once you're in that Titan. So what I was doing wrong, I guess, initially when I was playing, was just fighting other players in bounty hunt. That's not what you want to do. You want to basically go out, stalk the NPCs, rack up a bunch, be the first to the bank your stuff, maybe fight 1 or 2 players at the bank to try to steal their money. But after that, it's just fighting the NPCs and getting your Titan, and that's it. Which sounds boring, but once you get that Titan, that's when you become, the god of the battlefield. Yeah, running around killing, the pilots left and right. Very paper, rock, scissors.
One thing I got to say about that is how many mechanics they introduced in the single player campaign. Like, it gives you like a little taste of like a whole bunch of the stuff you get in the multiplayer, right?
Yeah,
but there's so much more in the multiplayer.
It is. It is. And
I'm shocked there's no level built around the grappling hook in the campaign, because the grappling hook is fucking incredible.
One of the coolest moments you'll ever have in that game.
Hook?
Yeah.
Really
yeah.
Not played enough the multiplayer. It's nice that they have this really rich Venn diagram where there's a lot of overlap between the single player and the multiplayer, but they each sort of have their own things going on.
It feels different. Yeah. So that would be my number 2, and that's an easy recommend to anybody who just wants to play a good FPS. I mean, like a fast feeling. I know you were talking earlier about how fast Doom felt.
FPS. I'd just say a good game.
Yeah, it's a good game. I mean, like, because if you don't even want to touch the multiplayer, I don't feel ripped off. I think I paid like $45 for it. I don't feel ripped off on that single player at all. I've been going back and like trying to beat it on, what do they call it, mastery mode. Lot less ammo, enemies hit harder, stuff like that. I've been going back and trying to play through it on mastery mode, and very, very, very fun game.
Another thing with the single player, though, is they're collecting the helmets.
Yeah.
Oh, that was actually
collectibles
fun
that
challenge.
Just who gives a shit about most collectibles in games, but they're always at the end of these insane, you see the helmet and you're like, how the fuck do I even get up there?
Because really what it's doing is it's making you think about the mechanics of the game. Yeah, because you can see the helmet from the other side of the map. It's not like you have to crawl through these ducts. You see it and you're like, okay, shit, how do I get over there? It feels different.
Kind of like Mirror's Edge.
It is a little Mirror's Edgy. Yeah, it is. And that you have to parkour.
Mirror's Edge that came out this year.
So
I have to agree with that.
My number 1 of the year is Overwatch. It's definitely been my number 1 in terms of time spent. It's kind of the game that brought back a lot of my old-timey gaming friends back together to play a lot of it. fell naturally kind of into our roles that we normally play. You know, like my friend who was always a hunter and WoW went right to Widowmaker, and I was always the healer, so I went right to Mercy, and our tank was Reinhardt, you know, things like that. But it's hard to describe what I like best about Overwatch, but it just kind of feels like you're always playing a different match. Just alone, the ability to switch your character mid-match, I think it was a genius one. A lot of the brawls, especially that Halloween mode they had come out, makes the game feel fresh. They're always adjusting, always tinkering. I play a lot of pub matches, you know, with occasionally with my friends, and it never feels like, you know, you just join and get stomped. So there's good matchmaking to it. I don't know. I mean, I enjoy the game. I even enjoy fighting the bots sometimes, just trying to learn new skills or new parts of the map or things like that.
What I'm gonna say here is that it feels like a natural evolution of team-based shooters,
Right.
because you first have like Team Fortress 2,
Mhm.
and then they combined it kind of like with MOBA,
Mhm.
and you kind of get this like you pick your hero. There's a bunch of heroes to pick from, and each of them has this very unique ability, and each of them feels different, and that's why every match feels different. Because,
and it's easy to play and to pick up and play, and
Yeah.
you don't have to worry too much about the meta, you know, which is, if you guys have ever played MOBAs, it's what the meta is, what the game's all about. What are the pros doing? How are they equipping or building or leveling this character or things like that? With Overwatch, by streamlining the team experience a lot, you kind of, I'm not going to say you can do no wrong. I mean, you can definitely pick the exact wrong character for a situation, Bastion on attack or something like that. But, in general purposes, in general situations, you really end up kind of just adapting to the other team or playing up your
Seems
strengths.
closer to like the meta of a fighting game than a MOBA. From my
kind of. Because
Yeah,
you're not leveling, you have all your abilities right there. So
Right.
That's
Like,
fantastic.
it's basically just characters and counter picks and everything, and like,
Yeah.
so some characters will be good at counter picking against other characters, but you
Definitely.
can still usually make do if like
I can assure you, there's definitely counter picks for Bastion online.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where I really like watching where the game went, because in the beginning it was like, well, this is what the pros do, so everybody do this. And then people kind of started to realize, you know what, pros communicating constantly, doing all this stuff, don't have the same gameplay that 5 random people do, you know? So it kind of went away from that and said, okay, if we're getting killed by a really good Bastion, for example, okay, somebody needs to pick a Hanzo, and then you see somebody, on your team who develops that skill at that character, and then so you end up getting good and playing 5, 6, 7 different characters, which is not really an experience you get in a lot of MOBAs these days, where people are just like, I am this guy, period, and if they counterpick me, oh well, we're gonna lose this game. Overwatch, by letting you pick mid-match, it really made some smart decisions in that game. So that would be my game of the year. Not just in time play, but how much I enjoy it and kind of playing it, experience it with friends, stuff like that.
I'm gonna say on Overwatch, that's probably the game I wished I liked most. I played a couple of matches of it and just like felt like it wasn't bad, but it just didn't grab me. But like everything about the game outside of the game, like the character designs, like all of that, I love. It's so good.
Sometimes
it's all over my Tumblr page for sure.
Sometimes it just takes 2 or 3 of those matches to click. Where you get a couple people that all know what they're doing, and you really just like push that objective really fast. You have a really key ultimate that basically turns the match for your team. You get that play of the game. That play of the game, oh my god, what a brilliant feature that is.
That's very smart.
You get that play of the game, and everybody just sits there and watches you. And even the other team is like, people in general in Overwatch are pretty complimentary towards each other. Even if you get. I mean, I'd say more so than like.
They're like, oh fuck that guy, he used the ult.
Yeah, but sometimes, like compared to like League of Legends or Dota, trust me.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I
mean,
everyone
wants to hear
to each other compared
more
to
racial slurs.
Yeah. So I mean, like even when you have a great play of the game, the other team will be like, "Wow, that was a really good one," or that's a cool feeling, and that's kind of what spurs me on. And like they've got like a winter. The brawl they had, that Halloween one, they've got a Christmas one going on now where you play as May and throw snowballs at each other, and I mean they're doing a lot of stuff in that game to keep it.
There is apparently a single-player campaign in development, and when that comes out, I'll probably buy it.
Yeah, you know what I'm hoping for honestly is a single player campaign, and I think if that Halloween event proved anything, a horde mode. You guys know what I mean by horde mode, right? You know, just like I think that a horde mode
Like
cannot be
wave-based
too far.
mode,
Yeah,
Good. I know there was a story going around. Blizzard was hiring campaign designers for a first-person shooter. So
That's got to be Overwatch then. I mean, I can't imagine them pumping out another one. And the campaign, I would imagine there's a story there in that game. You know, it just isn't implemented.
I think it'll be like Titanfall, where they did the first one multiplayer, and the second one will have a single player component.
I'd imagine so too.
The question is, will there be a second one, or will it just be an update?
I imagine it'll just be Overwatch and it'll keep going.
It could. I mean, because
put out a game every 4 years.
It'll be a DLC or something. I don't know.
If any company loves to do that, it's Blizzard, right? Look at WoW and what StarCraft 2 has become. One of my honorable mentions would be the StarCraft 2 co-op mode. I don't know if you guys have jumped into that.
No.
StarCraft 2 co-op mode?
Yes.
Oh, one more thing I'm going to say about Overwatch.
Sure.
Do not look for characters from Overwatch and then click on image search in Google. I mean, you could do that, but
Make sure
know
you have
what
safe
you're
search
getting
on.
into.
Right, opening another private window.
Is what you're saying.
Naughty America with your VR glasses on.
Symmetra.
Oh no, don't.
So for my 3 honorable mentions, like I said, StarCraft 2 co-op, game changer as far as that goes. The co-op mode is you against the computer in a very. They have these things called mutators where it's like, you know, minerals only count for half, or you're every now and then a nuclear explosion will go off randomly on the map or things like that. Very, very, very fun. I've played a lot of it with Dancing with Skeletons. We've had a good time with it. Really recommend that. My second nomination, or just missed the list, would be Total War Warhammer. I've been fiending obviously for some RTSs for a while, and that one hits the spot. I don't think the factions are as balanced as they could be, and they've been releasing a lot of DLC, which I think is kind of weird. Total War's been doing that for a while though, but very, very, very fun game. I really enjoy that one. And my third one is going to be Pillars of Eternity: The White March expansion. Love Pillars of Eternity, just base game. White March added almost an expansion to it in a very good way. It's a 1 and 2 part DLC, but playing the game as a whole, I went back and replayed it. Really, really love Pillars of Eternity, just everything about it. With the caveat, the reason it's not making the top 3 is I can't stand all the kickstart NPCs in the game. They just drive me crazy. Very bad level of writing on some of them, I guess, but that doesn't knock from the game as a whole, but enough to kind of keep it out of my top 3.
All right. So before we talk about my favorite games of the year, update on the Google image search for Symmetra. No pornography.
Oh man,
Wow.
I don't believe that. You gotta have safe
Surprise.
search on.
Fan art.
I can guarantee you though, if you look for the
I'm not
going
gonna put Symmetra naked.
Yeah.
I'm just
No, no Symmetra naked. The character, the quick one, the speedy one,
Tracer?
the British
Tracer.
one. Tracer, yeah. That
So,
one. Jesus Christ.
On Bing under Symmetra with safe search off, the first, second, third, fourth, the 5th one is porn, the 7th one is porn, the
Yeah, there
9th,
you go.
10th, and 11th is porn.
Yeah.
You gotta use Bing,
I
man.
have safe search off, and no porn for Tracer. A lot of swimsuit pics though.
Yeah.
Insane. That's insane.
Yeah.
Come on, internet. Come on, internet. I believed in you. You betrayed me. I was sure it's going to be full of porn.
You're sure there's Rule 34 has let us down once again.
Yeah.
First row on Tracer on Bing is inflation porn. So there's that.
Great, fantastic. That's what I was counting.
That's before
Like
even
the
normal
huge
porn
butt
of
thing?
her. Yeah.
First, we're going to handle all the fetishes in alphabetical order.
Okay, there was an inflation tracer in the image search, but she was fully clothed.
Oh.
That's still something. That's
That is
I'll
still
take.
something. So
It's
anyway,
still porn, let's face it. Like,
Somebody's
people
jacking
aren't
off
drawing
of
that because they think
If
it's
somebody's
like-
fapping to it is the standard for porn, then like everything's pornography.
That's
Like
true. You
somebody's
can,
probably
yeah.
fapping
that
to World
fap
Warhammer
to
right
it.
now.
Somebody's just playing Overwatch and masturbating.
Oh.
I can...
Somebody's playing Overwatch one-handed.
Yes.
Anyway,
Listen, I put the one hand
I-
and voted Bayonetta 2.
That's always point of Bayonetta.
yeah, I'm not really sure what they're going for with that.
It's
So
actually, if you want to know, they were putting it in because it helps people with disabilities play, and it won a whole bunch of awards for that.
That's nice. Very nice. Very nice.
okay, so
It
that
also
is
helps you
an actual
masturbate.
advantage. Yeah,
Like, I think it won, like, the Accessibility Gamer of the Year award or something.
That's cool. That's actually kind of cool.
that is actually really cool. Yeah, and not. Of course, it does have other uses, but
I mean, it's still funny, but...
yeah, of course, it's nice to be able to bring disabled gamers into the fold. So my favorite games of the year, I'm actually going to mention my top 4 because my third
wait,
favorite
cheat.
game. Sorry,
Wait, it's cheap.
Yeah,
Well-
cheater.
my third favorite game of the year was Titanfall 2, and we already talked
Ah.
about that at length. So we're going to start with my
Alright.
favorite game of the year, which was Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth.
I have no idea what that is.
That
Game is better than it should be.
that game is way better than it has any right to
I
be.
was just talking.
So it starts off as I find it very hard to sell this game to people because it starts off as
Not
one
the
kind of
rip-off
game,
of Summer Wars.
yeah,
Oh, I like Summer Wars.
which ripped off
Well, you know
Digimon
Summer
to
Wars
begin
is a
with.
Digimon
So
movie, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it ripped off. Okay, to be fair, it ripped off Digimon to begin with, but Mamoru Hosoda used to work on Digimon anyway, so he's kind of ripping off himself.
Created a movie with Digimon taken out, but the visual design of when you go into the net in fucking like Cyber Sleuth is just Summer Wars. Like, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I need to watch that movie at some point.
I mean, Summer Wars looks like Phantasy Star Online, so you know, so you gotta go.
But
with
it's like
that.
even down to like the big white void kind of like area. All the characters have like the colored outlines. It's
Yeah.
completely Summer Wars to a T.
So in any
So
case,
what's this freaking game? Tell me
Yeah,
about it.
okay, so it's a JRPG with turn-based combat, very much in the style of Persona. But for the first, I'd say, third of the game or so, it's very run-of-the-mill. It's a very run-of-the-mill JRPG, and there's not much going on. It almost plays like each chapter of the game plays like an episode of a television show, and a not very serialized television show. It plays like a procedural. Then midway through the game, about a third of the way through the game, I'd liken it to, if any of you guys have watched Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it was like when S.H.I.E.L.D. collapsed in the first season of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The plot goes completely haywire, and the difficulty level ramps up, and it turns into a completely different game altogether. I mean, still the same
Got there,
mechanics.
and now
but
I'm
it
really
feels
angry that I
completely different.
didn't.
Pardon me?
I never got that far before my Vita got stolen, and now I'm really angry that I didn't.
Oh, you
Oh,
Vita
it
got
gets
stolen.
they used Twist, and you didn't
Oh.
find out the secret behind Kishibe and all those people.
Oh,
That's a shame you got. You,
Okay,
you got
so
your
I won't
Vita
spoil any
stolen.
plot details, because
thank
you really
you.
should
I
experience
really
this for
want to
yourself.
back playing it.
So yeah, it becomes this completely different kind of game in terms of plot and tone. It basically turns from a procedural into sort of like the plot of Digimon Tamers, the third season of the anime. And it becomes this like, you know, trying to stave off the apocalypse plot mixed in with a whole bunch of other conspiracy theory stuff. It's a really well made JRPG. The mechanics are solid. It's a little confusing, a little overwhelming. But once you get the hang of it, it really feels, it in some ways makes you more invested in your monsters than, say, Persona makes you invested in your personas that you carry around. So yeah, in Persona the main focus is, you know, friendships with your fellow teammates. In Digimon it's focused on training a great team of monsters to fight the other monsters that are attacking Tokyo So yeah, it's a great JRPG. I highly recommend it, especially if you're into the Digimon franchise in any way. Um, Please check it out.
One thing I want to point out that I don't think you were going to touch on, which it definitely deserves massive credit for. At the beginning, you get to choose whether you're playing as a guy or a girl in it. They've re-rendered every pre-rendered cutscene with both a male and female avatar, and they play separately depending on what your gender is to choose. And I don't think I've ever seen a game do that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played as the female character. One thing they didn't do very well though, they did a kind of botched localization job. They frequently refer to you by the male gender. In some places they've corrected it, but in some places they've got the wrong pronouns for you.
Oh yeah, that happened a fair bit.
Also,
I-
if you play as a female character, in many cases, everybody assumes you're lesbian, basically, because they haven't changed any of the dialogue, so they talk about you like talking to cute girls and trying to woo them and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, Digimon
it's
is
just like
well
everybody
known
assumes you're lesbian.
for.
Which I guess is cool, kind of cool in its own way, but
Sure.
it's definitely because they neglected to change the dialogue.
Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise it's definitely an excellent game. It seems like the kind of thing they would have fully voiced and dubbed if they'd had more funds to do it. So they're actually dubbing the next Digimon game that's coming over to North America.
But that doesn't look very good.
Oh no, it looks like shit. It looks like a PS2 game. It's called Digimon World Next Order.
But you don't get to control the Digimon in it. You don't have any input in the fight. That looks crap.
You do control your Digimon. It's almost like the combat. It's like a shitty version of Dragon Age Origins combat system. That's what they're putting in Digimon World Next Order. It looks like such shit.
Okay.
But if you're into games with PS2 graphics and like a shitty version of Dragon Age,
Am I ever?
Hey, you might be. You never know. And you're into anime bullshit, then yeah, Digimon World Next Order. So yeah, that was my fourth favorite game. My third favorite game of the year was Titanfall 2, which, as we've discussed, is an excellent shooter with excellent level design. My second favorite game of the year was Uncharted 4.
Sure.
Yeah, so I know it's going to be a lot of people's favorite or near favorite game of the year. It's not a very unique choice, but it's a game that I enjoyed very much because I think it ended the Uncharted franchise, but also in a weird way sort of saved the Uncharted franchise. Uncharted 3 was a pretty significant step down from Uncharted 2 in terms of both gameplay in many ways and also narrative. Uncharted 4, the story they tell is, I don't think that Naughty Dog had the chops to tell the story when they were making Uncharted 1 and 2. And I think maybe it's making The Last of Us that trained them to tell the kind of story they're telling with Uncharted 4. It is a little bit darker than the Uncharted 2 story, but it is a story ultimately about brotherhood and loyalty and a lot of heady themes like that you wouldn't.
Can I just point out it's super weird that they've decided to do this story about brotherhood and loyalty with this new brother character that hasn't been mentioned in the 4 previous games.
Yeah,
don't worry about it.
It is really weird. That's what it's all the more remarkable that it actually works really well.
Huh.
Even given the series history, it is bizarre for sure, but the story works really well. In terms of gameplay improvements, it's not so focused on turning everything into a shooting gallery anymore. So now you have a lot of freedom in terms of moving around the environment. There's a lot of verticality in the levels, so melee is actually a viable option now, where it wasn't really before. You're encouraged to kind of move between cover instead of just sitting in one spot and sniping at everybody. They've added stealth mechanics, so now you can sneak up on enemies. They added a lot to the gameplay. The platforming, it's still more or less the same as before. They've added a few wrinkles that I don't think are all that significant. But yeah, in terms of mechanics and story, it's generally an improvement. What I really want to praise about the game, though, is the visual design and the art design that went into it. Normally, you think of people who say, great graphics are important as being almost sort of unsophisticated, like they're being wooed by this part of a game that doesn't matter all that much.
I think great graphics are important.
But yeah, I would agree.
I say that all the time. I love graphics.
I love graphics too, and Uncharted 4 is what convinced me that great graphics really play a role in making a great experience. Uncharted 4 is extremely polished, and everything down to, it's not just the graphical quality and graphical fidelity. Everything from the smoothness of the animation to the performance and the motion capture and the subtlety of the facial expressions. These are things you don't often see in video games, even video games of this budget. And to see them in Uncharted 4, I think really adds an extra layer of polish and gives that extra investment to the player in the game. They can really feel the emotions the characters are going through, which you don't often get with other video games. So yeah, for that reason, Uncharted 4, excellent game, highly recommended. Top
Also
game of
great
the year.
lock physics.
Oh yeah, sliding down the scree. That's great. That's great fun. Top game of the year, and science is bad. Alluded to this earlier. Firewatch.
Hell yeah.
Firewatch is, for those of you who aren't in the know, it's a first-person. I would describe it as a first-person visual novel, which is a very, very strange way of putting it. The way I like to see it, these sort of interactive fiction type games or quote unquote walking simulators, is that there's sort of two traditions of interactive fiction. There's the Japanese or Eastern tradition, which manifests itself with visual novels, and there's the Western tradition, which takes video games and then kind of strips out the game mechanics. So you get games like Gone Home, The Stanley Parable, Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, etc. Firewatch is very much in that mold, and it adds almost sort of a Metroidvania component to it, in that you unlock items throughout the story that let you unlock more areas of the location that you're in. So the premise is that you are a man who's working as part of the fire service in a Wyoming national park, and some mysterious things start happening while you're there, and in order to get to the bottom of the case, you communicate with your supervisor, her name is Delilah, over a walkie-talkie, and you uncover over the course of the game what the mystery is. It's really hard. It doesn't sound like much when you're just talking about it, but the way the story unfolds, the way it's told, the way the game builds tension steadily, the way the game reveals information bit by bit, it's really well made in that regard. Other things I'd praise about it, visually, it's a very striking game. It uses a fairly simple visual style, but the way they did the lighting.
Theme in these top threes.
Yeah.
Did Ollie, what's his name?
Ollie Moss, I believe.
Ollie Moss, yes, design.
Yeah, it's Ollie Moss and Jane Ng who did the art. Yeah, they did an excellent job. Again, they're working with fairly simple things, but they made a very painterly sort of game. And also the specific color palette they're using. They're using a lot of golden hues. They're using a lot of muted greens. It creates sort of this almost end of summer feel that I haven't seen replicated in many other places. And finally, the thing that really holds the game together are the vocal performances from. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the names of the people who are involved in this. So I'm going to look this up very, very quickly. Rich Summer and Cissy Jones. So Rich Summer plays the main character, and Cissy Jones plays the supervisor. Yeah, so you were saying, Science?
No, when you were checking up on the voice actors, I want to interject and say that, I felt like that those two performances, even though you don't actually, for like 90%, I'm not going to spoil anything, but you don't see the people talking, right? The person you're controlling, he's speaking to the person that you're not not going to see for the majority of the game. So basically, you're not seeing these two people interact. They're talking over the radio to each other, walkie-talkies, and the performance, the voice acting is so strong. It actually works extremely well, and you get attached to these characters, and they're very endearing and warm and fun, and you want to kind of hang around with them, and it's very fun. It's a great game for like just experiencing these characters like interacting with each other, these interesting characters.
Yeah, it's exceedingly well performed.
Yeah.
So let me just name a couple of my honorable mentions. So two smaller games that I played this year that I quite enjoyed were Grow Up, which I wouldn't call an indie game because it was published by Ubisoft.
It's developed by Ubisoft.
Yeah.
That's as un-indie as you can get.
Yeah, it's about as un-indie as you can get, but it's a smaller title that some people are going to call an indie game for incorrect reasons.
They're kind of like what are they like? They did Valiant Heart and Starlight and all that kind of stuff they've been putting out.
So they put it. Ubisoft has been nice in that they've been putting out smaller titles as well that have the flavor of indie games. Grow Up being one of them. So it's a sequel to a game they put out last year called Grow Home. The point of that game being to grow a beanstalk to a target by climbing up it and reaching certain points from which you can grow the stalk.
That's a metaphor for something, I bet.
Yes, it is a metaphor for interaction, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's just take all the subtlety out of it. I mean, this is the porn cast. Let's face it. Based on what we've been talking about earlier. So you grow the giant green penis up to the moon now and grow up. And the way you climb the stalk is you control each of the little robot guy's arms that you're moving around.
Wait.
You control each of the arms separately by moving the triggers on your controller, which is it's a little bit of an awkward system. It has a little bit of a flavor of Fumblecore type games, but once you get the hang of it, it's actually a pretty fun
did you just
system.
say Fumblecore
Yes,
type
like
games?
I Am Bread
is-
or like.
Yeah, Fumblecore is the.
I know
it's the
exactly
genre-
what you mean when you said it. I've just never heard that term before.
Yeah,
it's
That's
hilarious.
neither. Me neither.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
games like
Like
Octodad
Fwop and
and
shit.
Fwop. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that. I
Fumblecore,
like
that's
that.
the best word.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of that particular portmanteau. Yeah, so I really enjoyed Grow Up. The other actual indie game that I wanted to mention is a game called Oxenfree.
That's pretty good too.
Yeah, so that is you wouldn't
Talking
think.
one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the one with a lot of talking. You wouldn't think a two-dimensional horror game can work, but this one works wonderfully well. The premise
I'm
is
a
that
giant coward, so I think that would work really well on me.
it never gets like truly scary, but it gets very weird, I would say, and weird in an intriguing, suspenseful way. So the premise is that 5 friends go out to an island around the time of high school graduation. They go out for a day trip, and while they're on that island, supernatural things start happening, and they become separated from each other, and they have to escape from the island and make it out alive. There's not a game testing your skill. It's mostly there's some light puzzling, but it's mostly just a purely narrative game, almost like Kentucky Route Zero, in that there's no puzzles, but story unfolds. This one though is fully voiced, and it's voiced pretty well. There's not much more I want to say about it because I don't want to spoil the plot, but I will say it has one of the more realistic depictions of teenage interaction in a video game that I've seen.
Cool.
Most fiction, I think, just gets teenagers completely wrong. Especially high schoolers. Every piece of high school fiction I've seen just feels so alien to the kind of experiences I had in high school. This is one that I think speaks to experiences that are a little bit more like what I had. Yeah, especially it kind of it's one of those high schools. It's one of those pieces of fiction that sort of it doesn't really fall into the trap of that whole jock nerd dynamic that you see in a lot of high school fiction. It's a little it depicts popularity dynamics that are subtler, more nuanced, and I think more interesting and more realistic.
Cool.
Yeah. So those are my.
It's kind of like that opening scene in 21 Jump Street.
I saw that movie not that long ago, but remind me what happened.
But they're like in the parking lot and they're trying to figure out who all the like jock nerd cliques are, and they're just like, what the fuck even is this? This is nothing like high school.
And like all the cool kids are like the drama kids and like the math club.
Yeah, so that was like high school was like for me. I mean, it's not that sports like athletes were uncool. It was just that cliques didn't really exist.
Movies haven't updated their cliques to the 80s, basically.
Yeah, like high school fiction has not been updated since the 80s. I don't know, maybe people who went to high school in the 80s really love Freaks and Geeks. I watched it and like, this is a load of shit. Like none of this is realistic, but apparently it's realistic to people who grew up in the 80s, and they tell me that it really reflects their high school experience. So I'll take their word for it. So yeah, those are the games that we all enjoyed this year. A couple of other things I wanted to ask about. What games really surprised you this year? Not positive surprises, negative surprises. What games were surprising you this year?
Well, I already mentioned Titanfall, kind of coming out of nowhere, and I mean I know we kind of covered that one, and I guess in a way, Division getting patched. But I'll tell you one that I really thought that kind of came out of nowhere that I surprised and enjoyed, but not enough to make my top 10, was Far Cry Primal. I don't know if any of you guys played that one.
Yeah, I heard it was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean it's Far Cry and it's Caveman, but it's very easy to recommend at like a $20 price point. Just as something like, hey, you don't get many Caveman games anymore, or ever.
No.
Horizon Zero Dawn is coming out next year.
That's true.
Oh yeah, that's true. I want to interject.
That's post-apocalyptic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's post-apocalyptic, but let's face it, it's cavemen with robots.
I want it on the box. It's Far Cry, it's Caveman on the box.
That's pretty much I can. It was enjoyable though. It really was. I mean, in a lot of ways, I think this gaming season, where let's go back to World War I, let's go back to Caveman. Like you almost got an overabundance of. You've almost got an overabundance of
between World War and Caveman.
But like how gaming right now is all futuristic. Like everything feels like Call of Duty. How far into the future can we go? Even Titanfall. How far like everything is like lasers and space marines and.
You know why I think why that happened? I think when they came in with the super smooth, cool motion parkour things, they didn't want to, just say, okay, we're going back to one jump game.
Right.
Like, oh no, we're going to have to go into the future now.
Make it fucking Assassin in the Renaissance. It worked.
But, they don't have jetpacks though.
They could.
I
mean, they have Da Vinci. Like, Ezio hangs out with Da Vinci, right?
Yeah.
Da Vinci had a jetpack, yeah. Like a Mario Sunshine jetpack on water based.
I've got a game that surprised me in the worst way though.
Uh-oh. The worst supply.
Basically, Star Fox Zero was one of my most anticipated games I've ever seen. Because I love Star Fox. Lilac Wars, which is Star Fox 64 for you Americans, is my favorite N64 game. Also, it was being co-developed by Platinum, who make my favorite games in the world.
I love how you said you Americans.
Yeah.
Like, one
the
podcast American.
Well, North American region, I think it's Star Fox 64 everywhere except in PAL regions, isn't it?
I don't know.
All I know is I played Lilac Wars as a kid. Also, yeah, being co-developed by Platinum, and I love Platinum games, and Star Fox Zero sucked really hard.
Australia and Europe, so science is bad. It's a lot of wars where you are too.
Sure, okay.
So you guys
yeah,
are just
like-
basically taking I'm just America for the sake of this argument, right?
I mean, I'm Canadian.
Yeah, I know.
The States now. Anyway,
But yeah, like there was the controller thing, which had like the dumb like aiming with the fucking gamepad thing, which wasn't great, but I don't think that's what really ruined it. I think like you play through that game and there are like 3 Star Fox levels in it, and everything else is like there's a fucking stealth level in it. Like, who plays Star Fox and wants a stealth level?
the same people who play the Batmobile sections of Arkham Knight for the stealth.
All
It
10
wasn't
of them.
that
That-
bad.
Like,
Oh,
Star
it was
Fox Zero-
worse.
I don't know. It wasn't great, but yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Yeah, continue railing on Star Fox
Yes,
Zero.
yes. Sorry.
So Star Fox shit. It's not a very good game. It was a massive disappointment. And the other one was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Manhattan Madness. I want to say the other Platinum game this year, which again I've loved everything Platinum has made, even like the Legend of Korra game and everything. I thought were really good. And Ninja Turtles wasn't
Like the Legend of Korra game.
Mutants in
yeah.
Manhattan
The
is what it's called.
No, but did you not know there was a Legend of Korra game, or did you?
There
know
was
you're
a
surprised
Legend
by
of
it?
No,
Like,
I know there was a Legend of Korra game. I just felt it kind of like was very flat.
it was obviously made on a really, really,
Yeah.
really budget.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think what they managed to do with that budget and the actual core combat system, where you like have to build up the chi and get stronger moves and all that stuff, I thought that was really cool.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it.
Okay,
But
fair enough.
yeah, Ninja Turtles is shit. Don't play
All
it.
right.
Like,
I won't.
it's-
I won't.
Yeah, so both your surprises were
Bad.
negative. So I
I
actually
do have one positive surprise.
Okay.
If you want to end it on a happier note. There's a mobile phone game called Dan the Man, which is free and based on a web series of cartoons that I don't really like, and is actually really, really good. It's like a 2D side-scrolling platformer beat 'em up kind of thing, and is better than it has any right to be for a free Android game.
Right.
Like, give it a shot.
Will do. I just all I'm gonna say is Doom for me because of what the things I've said. So I already said why that was my surprise.
So what surprised me this year was like Kappa. I was surprised by Titanfall 2. I normally don't go out and buy, the big blockbuster first-person shooter or one of the big blockbuster first-person shooters of the year. I like first-person shooters. I just, they're not generally on my radar, not generally my priority. I bought this one on the recommendation from a lot of people telling me it had one of the best single-player campaigns in years, and I agree. It might not be my favorite single-player campaign of the past few years, but it's up there. And I really enjoyed it. And my other surprise, and this is probably a game that very few people have heard of, and I guess none of our listeners would have. It's this free indie game called We Become What We Behold. Don't want to spoil it, but you can just go play it online. I believe it's on itch.io.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, let me look that up right now, where it is.
It is on Newgrounds, apparently.
Yeah.
It's on Newgrounds. Okay. Yeah, it's on Newgrounds and on itch.io. Go ahead and play it. It's very short. It takes about 15
Newgrounds
minutes.
have a lot of ads on now.
Yeah, Newgrounds.
Yeah, so play it on itch.io.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very short. Takes 15 minutes. Has a pretty good message at the end as well. I'd highly recommend it. So go out and play it.
Cool.
It was not something I expected. It was not something that was even on my radar. One of my buddies, I was chatting with him, and he's like, "Have you checked out this game?" And I said, "No, I haven't even heard of it." He showed me the link. He's like, "Come talk to me again in 15 minutes." Played it. 15 minutes later, I was like, "Oh my god, thank you for showing this to me."
Okay.
So yeah, it's free as well. So go ahead and try it. So yeah, those are the games that surprised us. Now I guess we kind of have to do this. We're the shittiest games we've played this year. I think, Ben, you've already mentioned that.
Those were not my worst games of the year.
Ooh,
though.
those are not the worst games.
Wow.
You played some kind of shitty games. What was the shittiest game you played this year? Like the
Shittiest
game
I
that
played
made
this
you
year
lose faith in humanity.
Like
Two-way
the
tie?
shittiest shit.
What was
the
that?
worst.
There is a game, and I don't know how I'm supposed to say this, because it is spelt Z Heroes as one word, like The Heroes, I
Okay.
guess. I don't know how you're
Hero.
supposed to...
The heroes. I don't
Maybe it's
Yeah,
just a French guy saying the heroes.
know.
I don't know how I'm supposed to say it, but
Okay.
it's
The
a
heroes?
beat 'em up game, and it was one of the free games with gold games that I got this year, and it's like, yeah, it looks pretty cool, it's got a fun art style and everything, and it's just the worst beat 'em up I've ever played, with the
Heroes.
exception of, I can't even remember the fucking name, that's how much I don't care about Super Dungeon Bros.
Yeah.
Okay, Super Dungeon Bros is by far the worst game I've played this year. It is basically, imagine if you're playing Gauntlet, right? Everyone's played Gauntlet?
I don't know
Yeah.
what Gauntlet is, but let's pretend that I do.
It's a arcade
Nope.
game. Never mind.
The Barbarian Needs Food Badly. You never played that?
Yes. Valkyrie needs food bad.
Okay.
I think I'm a little younger than you guys.
But
Anyway.
you know how you can only play as the Archer and the Warrior? Those are the only two classes in the game. Also, the Archer is useless, so you can only play as the Warrior, because the Archer gets 3 shots and then has to spend 5 seconds reloading in the middle of giant waves of enemies. Also, the game is filled with, like, really bad kind of dumb bro humor. Like, there's these little knights wearing, like, the Kanye shades and shit. And the levels aren't very fun, and it looks not very good. And, like, me and my wife started playing it, because it's, like, 2-player co-op, and, like, yeah, I'll sit down and play this. We got, like, 5 minutes in, it's just like, can we agree we'll never play this again? Yeah.
Fantastic. You know, I have no contenders for the worst game of the year, so...
Good. I'll take over.
All right. Let's hear what you hate.
No, I'm just kidding. If you have some, go ahead. But I've got 3, and I think these will probably be pretty universal. So I don't know. Maybe one might get a little controversy, but worst is Battleborn, and I actually gave it a shot. It is horrible. And I know a lot of the whole, it's not Overwatch. It is, it's its own game and stuff. It's just a bad game, man. I don't know what they were doing when they released it. I got it as part of a Humble Bundle. I think I
Oh, wow.
paid,
Humble Bundle year of release.
Yeah, that tells you a lot about it.
It's like $10 now to get or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it was like $6. And that was as part of the whole bundle. It was like, yeah, and you got like 2,500 whatever the hero credits were. It's just
definitely feel bad for the people who worked on it at Gearbox.
I don't
feel
hate
bad for
Gearbox.
Randy Pitchford, though.
Yeah, exactly.
No. Yeah.
It's a bad game. I can see what they were doing with it. I can see they were trying to go in a MOBA but first person direction with it. The game itself though is just not good. The style is not good. They were going for a very artistic style, but it looks like crap in actual while you're playing it. It just looks very goofy, like a Pixar shooter or something. You can't have, Gatling guns and archers and stuff at the same time. The game really gets...
Let's have that.
The game really gets over the top with its own, like, with its story, the whole choose your badass, be a badass hero that's doing badass things. Like, I think they think it's funny, but it really grates. The heroes all feel like...
Also to Ben's point about aesthetics, it's not so much that you can't do the Pixar shooter like Overwatch does, it's that Overwatch has this sort of... There's a sort of unified aesthetic to it, whereas Battleborn is just a hodgepodge of aesthetics that don't work together.
Right.
That's the
like,
problem.
it's got, like, very, like...
On the price, to buy Battleborn from my local game store at the moment is $15. And that's not a sale price.
What bargain!
And that's Australian gaming prices. Our games are $100.
Yeah. So you're saying about the hero design?
They all feel like, if not taken directly from Overwatch, taken from other MOBAs, taken from League of Legends, taken from Dota, taken from things like that. The game is just the gameplay flow is very boring. You move around the levels. It's not very fun. The versus mode is okay, but there's no real attempt to balance heroes. I mean, heroes are either unstoppable or the counter to 3 or 4 different heroes. There's a lot of problems with it. It's not a good game. The other one, my second disappointment of the year would be Marvel Ultimate Alliance re-release on PC. Can't tell you how much I love the original version of this game. The re-release is a piece of trash, though. I don't even know if to this day they've included full Xbox controller support for it. which you kind of need because it's all mapped around the Xbox controller. Obviously, it's got some PC controls, but they're apparently really hard to figure out.
I can't imagine playing that game on PC. Like I played it on 360. I cannot picture how that works on a keyboard and mouse.
Yeah, and so it doesn't have full 360 controller support, which is basically the standard, right? I would argue, the standard for PC gaming controller support is the 360 controller.
Yeah.
Didn't that come out without DLC as well?
Yeah, no DLC. They finally went back and patched that in. They still haven't fully
That's like 20 characters.
Yeah. They still haven't fully patched in all the DLC. I think they just did the Xbox and PS exclusives, but they haven't. That game had a ton of exclusives, like Vita and all the other, all had exclusive characters. So they're still getting around to it with all the DLC. But the main reason this is disappointing for a re-release is it's $40. I mean, that's right. That's kind of nuts to me to be expecting.
Wait, did the $40 come with number 2 as well? Or
No, just one. Yeah.
Shit! I thought it was $40 both
It
of them.
totally comes with number 2, yes.
It does?
$40 comes with number 2.
Because the one I'm looking at on Steam right now, Marvel Ultimate Alliance is $39.99, or you can buy the.
I'm just saying.
Oh yeah, I got you. You can buy a bundle for $60 that includes both of them, which is the price of a full game, and that's a re-release of a game from 2 generations ago, And they didn't really do that much with the graphics, honestly. If you remember that game, it had its own style and it's very shiny looking, not amazing graphics.
Wasn't it actually like it was part of when the 360 launched, so it was like part normal Xbox, part 360, because it looked ugly for a 360 game at the time.
Yeah, and then they did, I want to say they did kind of like a bundle with 360 where they basically upgraded it and released it with, I want to say like a driving game or something, maybe like a Forza or something. Like it was a bundle in with the Xbox, Marvel Ultimate Alliance, and I want to say something else. And they made the graphics look better on Xbox than PlayStation, which was a real big deal for a little bit. But it's a very weird looking game. It's not consistent throughout. And now to get a little controversial.
On PlayStation 2, Xbox, there's a Game Boy Advanced version of it?
Yeah.
It also didn't have a Vita version, it got a PSP version. That's how old it was.
Yeah.
Sweet Jesus.
My biggest or worst game of the year is Deus Ex Mankind Divided. I hated that game. I've kind of come back around on it. Like as I was playing it, I got done with it. I was like, okay, that was okay. There needs to be some DLC. But I decided that with the buyer skill points, with the buyer, all the microtransactions they had in, the fact that the game is not finished, one location, just everything about it, it really leads the top of my biggest disappointment or worst games of the year. Not just for the game itself, but also kind of a lot of the shady stuff around it. And the fact that I think they basically pushed an unfinished game in a Deus Ex series that had been feeling revitalized after Human Revolution out the door. It's kind of it's bothered me more than when I finished it than when I initially played it.
Would you say the mobile phone game was better?
I didn't mind that one, honestly. And my wife played it a ton for me. That was like right up her alley.
Those Go games are amazing.
Yeah,
they're better than they have any right to be.
Yeah, the Tomb Raider one's good. The I can't remember what the other one is. Hitman, I think.
I haven't played that.
But I don't know. I don't know if you guys have played it yet. I don't. I'm sure it's on sale now, but to me it doesn't feel like a fully fleshed out game. It feels like an expansion for Deus Ex Human Revolution that was sold to me at full price, and then now they're going to vector more DLC into it to finish out the game, which I'm not happy with.
Yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit more than you did. In fact, to the point that it's actually in my top 10 of the year. But I will say there was definitely some shadiness surrounding its release. The microtransactions are completely unnecessary, to the point that
it's the game that had that thing where, like, if it got a certain amount of pre-orders, they would release more content or something.
Yes.
They
got rid of it, but yes,
they
really
got rid
did.
of that. That was the initial.
Oh, that was some scumbag shit.
Yeah, and so what they did though was they included microtransactions in the game, so you could buy with real money skill points. Like, to make your hacking faster, or and then they introduced you could buy game currency with real money in a single player game. This is not a multiplayer game.
That's garbage.
Right?
Yeah,
So I mean,
it's so stupid. You know what came? I was about to say. You know what came out about it? Apparently, they built the game, and Square Enix told them they had to throw in microtransactions. So they'd already balanced the game not to need microtransactions, and then they just shoved them in. So if they feel unnecessary, it's because they completely are.
Yeah.
The game was balanced without microtransactions.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Alright, you can play it without them then.
Yeah, you can, but the fact that they even include it to me is just, I don't know, it's scummy. And then the game definitely feels like unfinished is the best way I could describe it. I got to the end before I even knew I was at the end. I actually thought I was going to be going to a different city. If you guys have ever played Deus Ex, it kind of is like a globe hopping James Bond type thing. You do the missions in the first city and it leads you somewhere else. This game has that. You leave the first city, you come back to Prague, and then it's like, okay, good game. Your guy like stares out the window and drinks a shot of whiskey, and he's like, boy, I can't wait to figure out what happens next in the DLC that you have to buy to basically get the ending.
The DLC doesn't provide any sort of ending. I've played one of the DLCs, and from what I've heard of the other, they're not really. They don't really provide closure. That's not their purpose. They're like side stories. Yeah, I don't know. The ending isn't spectacular, but I can't think of how else it would be ended based on the story they told.
Well, you still got that group running around. I mean, in its various mechanisms.
That feels like a sequel hook,
right?
More than
but
something that needs to be ended in that game itself.
The guy you kill, the bad guy you kill, you're introduced to like maybe 20 minutes before you kill him. I mean, really, like, he pops up.
No, you're introduced to him way before.
But then he just shows up, says one scary thing, and then throws you out the door. But it's...
Yeah, but, like, it's obvious he's the bad guy. And
right.
Run into him later. Like,
but he's not the head of the organization that's behind a lot of the evil stuff. He's, like, more like a foot soldier,
Yeah.
Like a mini-boss. But you never crack into that upper level. That's what I assumed after taking him out. You would get a new mission. It would say, okay, well, here's the real brains behind this, But no,
he's like the dragon. Do you know that term?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let me put it this way: in the other Deus Ex games, at some point, you don't necessarily see the top guy, but you sort of see the man behind the curtain.
Right.
And you don't really get that with this game.
Yeah, even if the man behind the curtain is, society or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing bigger than the big, roided out looking guy with, that throws bombs at you, that in most normal sense, oh, this is a mini boss, like he's got that kind of look and that kind of tone and that kind of story setting. You can kill him by, I'm not going to spoil it, but I mean, he can be one of the most anticlimactic boss fights in history, knowing that he's the end boss and knowing that there's a way to kill him in it. It could probably be, if that's what the whole game was working towards.
Is setting your clock forward on the PS2 to beat the end in Metal Gear Solid 3.
Plug in a different controller.
Put it this way: if you unlock the non-lethal way of beating him, it takes a lot of suspense out of the game.
Yeah.
In fact, the non-lethal way, as far as I know, is the only way to avoid a certain outcome.
Yeah, and the non-lethal way that you get it is basically called "this thing kills the boss." Like it's not like called like the enzyme solution alpha or anything like that. It's like, no, this is the thing that kills this particular guy.
It's called like a disruptor, and like it's so clear that you're going to need to hold on to this until the end of the game.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's like if you found like a mushroom in Mario that was like, this mushroom kills Bowser, and you found it in like World 2, and you're like, oh, all right.
Toad is like, by the way, hold on to that mushroom. All right.
Yeah.
I can't take these games seriously when I play them and they say Illuminati out loud, and like they're serious about it. I'm just like, come on. Like,
I feel.
Go ahead.
You've got to realize the time in which the first Deus Ex.
I know. Honestly, I know, but
yeah, it came out at a time when talking about lizard people was like the internet was not such a huge thing back then. It came out at a time when talking about lizard people and the Illuminati and weird Beyonce symbols was not a thing really.
Yeah.
And now it what once felt like something fresh and interesting almost feels a bit like self-parody at this point.
That's a good way to put it.
And it's a good thing that Human Revolution largely steered away from that. I mean, it's sort of in the background because it's part of the franchise's DNA, but Human Revolution steered away from that to ask questions about humanity and transhumanism and what is the essence of a human.
Yeah.
Mankind Divided tried to ask questions about racism and discrimination. I don't necessarily think he was asking the right questions.
What was it? What mechanical apartheid or something like that?
Yeah, that's an unfortunate phrase. I think
Yeah.
the game is a little
Chemical
bit more.
apartheid.
The game
And
is
all life matter.
okay. Here's what I'd say. I think the game is far more intelligent than its marketing would imply. The marketing for that game was not good. I mean, there is complex socio-political fabric in that game that goes, or socioeconomic fabric, I should say, that goes beyond these guys are augmented, these guys are not. The reason some people are augmented and the reason some people aren't is actually very interesting. But I mean, for the sake of time, we're not gonna get into that in detail. What I will say though is that it should have been asking questions about.
All right, I'll be in there.
Given that there is discrimination, how do we combat it? And it sort of hints at that, but for the most part, it's content to just ask, is it bad to discriminate? And it answers that question with a resounding yes, as it should. And that's not the interesting question. The interesting question is, how do we combat discrimination? And it doesn't get into that enough. And that, to me, is the disappointment of Deus Ex. And there's a lot about that game that I enjoyed. I think the level design is excellent. I think the gameplay is mostly excellent. I think it's well voice acted and all that. And I think it's generally a polished, well-made game. But it could have been so much more. It really could have been a Game of the Year contender, and they dropped the ball in a lot of small ways that prevent it from being, a top 3 kind of game.
That sums up a lot of my feelings for it. I guess for me, not so much worst game. To me, the worst game was Battleborn, but the most disappointing game is what I would definitely call it. The most disappointing game, because Human Revolution really took a lot of steps in cool directions, and this one not so much.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. As for the games that I found the worst, I feel kind of bad calling them the worst games of the year, because I don't even think they're really bad games. I don't think I played a single bad game this year. Last year I played a couple of games. I played Forward to the Sky and I played Sunset, and they were both so awful that I could go on for hours about why they were bad. This year, the worst games I played were Pony Island and That Dragon Cancer, which are 2 indie games. I feel especially bad saying anything negative about That Dragon Cancer, because it's such a deeply personal game made about this incredible tragedy.
Yeah, I think if you call that a bad game, you're officially a bad person.
Sorry. It's just not a game that spoke to me on any level. And it also had technical issues and other things. But yeah, it's not a bad game by any means. And I would not characterize it as a bad game, or ever dream of characterizing it as a bad game. It's just not a game that spoke to me. And so it ended up being like the worst game I played this year, which actually says that 2016 was a pretty good year for gaming, if that was the worst game I played.
Can you think of Pony Island though? What is Pony Island? I've never heard of this game.
It's not a game about ponies.
Pony Island is not what you expect. It's
kind of like Frog Fractions if Frog Fractions was kind of disappointing.
Yeah, it's kind of, yeah, that's how I'd put it. It's like Frog Fractions.
My Little Pony.
It's like a not good Frog Fractions.
Yeah.
There's some clever bits, but overall, Frog Fractions did it better. So
yeah.
You can. It's actually pretty cheap on Steam. You can pick it up for like $6 or $7.
No, I'll just play Frog Fractions again.
Yeah, Frog Fractions.
Or you could probably just watch a YouTube of it. It's very meta. I don't know if I'm using that correctly to describe it, but it's very.
Imagine it's a horror game, a puzzle game, and an endless runner all mixed into one, and not particularly well.
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
That's all I'll say about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
As for games that actually disappointed me, which are by no means the worst games of the year, I'm going to point out 2 AAA games, one of which I don't think will be very controversial, and one of which I think will be very controversial. So the one that's not very controversial is Mirror's Edge Catalyst. I still think even go as far as to say that it's a good game, but oh lord, it has probably the worst narrative of any AAA game I've ever played.
Is it worse than the original Mirror's Edge? Because that was pretty shit.
It's worse by miles. The original
Wow.
Mirror's Edge it was inoffensive. It wasn't good. It was inoffensive and pretty low quality. This is actively awful. It's ridden with dystopian cliches and made up dystopian slang. The voice acting is not good enough to be good, but not bad enough to be so bad it's good. So it's just awkwardly mediocre. There's not a single likable character in the game at all, and not in like the prestige drama kind of unlikable way. Imagine you're watching a CW show and every character on that show were unlikable.
Yeah.
Or like watching like
I don't have to imagine that.
Yeah, like you're watching the season of The Flash.
Arrow season 3.
Boom, boom, anyway, yeah. Then on top of that, probably the greatest sin is that running across rooftops and being an outlaw should feel liberating and joyous. But the whole mood and the art style is very, it's got this bright white with colors. It's all, it's very sunny, bright lights all over the place. But the mood of the story is so dour and depressing, and everybody is so in such a foul mood all the time. And there's all these over-the-top histrionics with people hitting each other for no reason. It just feels like the story and the gameplay are just fundamentally at odds. The most damning thing I could say about it is that you could strip out all the cutscenes, replace it with different cutscenes, and you could have a Game of the Year contender. That's how bad the story is.
You know what's weird about that
knocks
is
the game down that badly.
it was such like a love child for DICE to come out with this game. Do you know what I mean? Like they were like basically acknowledged that there's not a ton of people looking for a Mirror's Edge sequel. Like it sold okay, but the people that liked it loved it, and have been asking for this forever. So it was weird to me that when it got kind of pushed out the door, and I know it was produced by DICE, the actual DICE, the one in Sweden, Stockholm. So I mean, it was weird to me that that the story was what didn't hit, because I figured that with all the love and everything else they wanted to put into it, and it got delayed. I don't even know how many times, a whole bunch of times, right? So yeah, it was really surprised that was what was getting the knock on it after so many delays, that people were saying, hey, this game is kind of, like you're saying, it's not fun, it's boring, it's lifeless, that was a surprising cut into the game. I expected if anything was going to be wrong, it would be, controls or graphics or anything else, but nope, it sounds like
controls are excellent.
Yeah.
The actual missions are excellent. I even don't mind the move to an open world, although it like one would say it like Ubified the game, even though it's made by EA or published by EA, I should say. Even the move to an open world, I think, was largely a boon for the game.
And like it's got like a really good soundtrack. I mean, they did a lot for it.
Excellent. It's just the story is so awful and so at odds with everything else about the game that it just completely sinks it.
Yeah.
And finally, this is probably going to be the most controversial pick for disappointing game, because
Could be
again, I think
Pokemon
it's
Go.
on the whole a good game. It's not going to be Pokemon Go. Dishonored 2,
Okay.
which I finished earlier this week.
Interesting.
I'll go as far as to say it's a good game, but it's so much less than it could have been.
Huh.
It's really just feels like Dishonored 1 fanfic.
All right.
Because I wasn't
saw
a fan
that game, like, being shown, like, at E3 and shit. Like, I liked Dishonored, it was alright, and then I looked at that and it's like, it just looks like Dishonored. Like, didn't seem any reason to play that. Like, it didn't seem like it was taking Dishonored anywhere new. It was just, it could have been DLC,
there's literally no reason for this game to exist. It's mostly fun. I think some of the early levels have some. Also the level design is worse than the first Dishonored.
I heard that too.
And particularly compared to the Dishonored DLC, it really pales in comparison. So the level design is a little more restrictive. There's some very clear paths, and those are the only paths you can follow. It does open up a little bit, and some of the later levels, especially the second last level, is excellent. But some of the early levels are a little bit disappointing with regards to level design.
As a well-avowed Dishonored 1 hater, I was sitting at GameStop. They had a buy two get one for pre-owned, and I had Dishonored 2 and Watch Dogs 2, and I just couldn't decide between the two. You know what I mean? Because I was like, I ended up going with Watch Dogs, but it really was because everything I'd seen about Dishonored 2 is exactly what you're saying. It just looked like more of the same. Yes, you get to play as what's her name, Emily.
Emily, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's enough of a draw for me to pull me back into that game. Stealth to me is something that you got to do right all the time. It can't just be right in certain sections or in certain areas. And I felt like Dishonored only did stealth right for me a couple times, and I think that's why I really kind of pushed off on it.
I'd say Dishonored 2 does stealth. Okay, I won't go as far as say it does stealth slightly worse. It does non-lethal
Okay.
slightly worse than the first Dishonored.
Yeah, and
Does
that's
it still
tied hand in
punish you for
hand.
doing lethal though?
Pardon me?
Does it still like punish you with the bad ending for doing
Yeah.
lethal though?
That's
Yeah,
ridiculous. I mean,
yeah, what I'd say about the non-lethal options, what they did in the Dishonored DLC was they added a couple of new items that made it slightly easier to do non-lethal runs. In Dishonored 2, they walk that back, and you're back to basically the Dishonored 1 options in terms of non-lethal items, but now you can choke people in sword fights, but the way you choke them in a sword fight is they have to attack you, you have to block successfully, and then there's a chance that they'll become staggered, and then you can choke them. It's so awkward and ridiculous. You basically just stand there waiting for them to come at you with the sword. Half the time you can't react in time, and half the time you do react in time, but they don't get staggered. So you just have to go through 6 or 7 sword hits before you can finally do a successful block that staggers them and you can choke them out.
yeah, that doesn't seem like fun gameplay to me.
It's not fun. It's just
Yeah.
so awkward. Yeah, and then the narrative it's not bad. It's just boilerplate. There's not much to recommend to it. It really feels like Dishonored 1 fanfic.
Damning
Again,
words.
if you haven't played Dishonored 1, I think say you can jump into Dishonored 2, and you'll probably have a great time. But
One of the things
once
that
you've played one Dishonored, you don't need to play the second. There's just no point.
Maybe you can help me understand this. Just in case I haven't read much about the reviews, but timeline wise, I mean, obviously we're 20 years from the first one or so.
Yeah.
Because Emily's, looks, I would guess
Emily's,
25.
Emily's now.
Yeah. So I mean, what's Corvo, like 60? I mean, he wasn't young in the first one, right? Because he was the spy master and he did all this other crazy stuff.
He's in his 50s.
Yeah. Does he play like it, or is he just the same old Corvo?
It looks like a dad.
I don't know. I played as Emily, so I
Okay.
can't answer that. But
Okay,
yeah, he does
would you recommend though, now that, because Dishonored 2 is out and there's also the Dishonored 1 HD edition thing on Xbox One PS4, which should you buy if you're getting into Dishonored?
I would say, and the only reason I'm saying this is because the first Dishonored has the DLC. Go to Dishonored 1 and play the DLC, which is excellent.
Which is a Dunwall or whatever.
The Witches of
Knife of Dunwall and the Brigmore Witches.
Ah, okay.
the Rigmore Witches. There you go.
Probably
Dunwall
cheaper
City
too.
Trials was like the shitty cash-in DLC.
Yeah, that was just to
Yeah.
justify a season pass or whatever it was.
Yeah, it's really the story DLC is where it's at. Yeah, Dishonored 1, I think also the other disappointing thing about Dishonored 2 compared to Dishonored 1, Dishonored 2 is set, and this isn't really spoiling anything, Dishonored 2 is set in a different city, Karnaka, which is in a tropical location, as compared to Dunwall, which is in a temperate, cooler location. Karnaka just feels like tropical Dunwall.
Yeah.
And
different skybox.
Yeah. And slightly different
It's like
vegetation.
Dunwall, but with parrots.
Yeah, basically, not even parrots. There's no different. There's like flies instead of rats.
There you
But-
go.
Yeah, like really, there's nothing else to it. It feels like the same kind of city with the same kind of social dynamics. They could have used this opportunity to design a different feeling city, and they didn't take that opportunity, and it feels like a big missed one.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's why Dishonored 2, in some ways, while being honestly not a bad game, I'd go as far as say it's a good game. but it's so much less than it could have been, and it really didn't push the franchise forward in any way, shape, or form.
All right.
So yeah, those were disappointments or bad games that we played this year. Just to close out, one last question to you guys. So obviously you don't get to finish everything. We're recording this in mid-December. It'll probably come out in late December. You don't get to finish everything before the end of the year. Are there any games that you're currently playing that you think could make your best of list?
If I can. I'll go first because I have to leave in like 4 minutes.
Oh yeah.
I've played. Shadow Tactics came out this December, and it looks really cool. I like the Commando style games. Desperados is one of my favorite games actually. I love that game. So I'm still playing that. I'm really enjoying it, but I couldn't place it in top 10 because I don't know how it'll go, how long it'll be. It looks really cool though. And then there's Tyranny, which I love Obsidian. I love their style of games, their storytelling. So I have a lot to go through there. I'm at the beginning basically, so it's a ways off, but it looks cool, and I really like the world they made. So still going through that. And last one, I have Phoenix Wright, Spirit of Justice. I really like those Phoenix Wright games. I don't think it would make my top 10, but yeah, I like those games. So
Ben or Kappa, any games you guys are currently playing?
Well, Tyranny was definitely one of mine. The other one, I'm going to go ahead and say it's going to be Final Fantasy 15. I know it gets bad. I know there's issues with Chapter 13, I think it is, or whatever. So far, I'm loving it. I haven't enjoyed a Final Fantasy game really since 9, 8, but this one is really, at least I'm on Chapter 3 so far, and it's really feeling fun and original and different. I'm really liking it so far. I know I've read the complaints out there, so it might not be making that list, but I did hear that they're working on a patch to fix a lot of the common complaints. So hopefully, it comes around and I do continue to enjoy it.
Ben, anything you're playing?
For me, Assault Android Cactus. I started playing last night. It's really, really good. It's like basically a twin stick bullet hell shooter. It's like you're playing. It's just really good.
Are you playing, just real quick? Are you playing it on a phone or are you playing it on?
PS4.
Okay.
Huh, cool.
All right, and
other one. There was one other which hasn't actually come out yet, but when I actually get to play it, it probably would have made my top 10, which is Shantae and the Half Genie Hero.
Oh yeah.
Those Shantae games are amazing. I've loved every one of them so far, but the next one comes out in like 2 days, so I haven't actually got to play it yet.
Yeah, I hope you'll enjoy it. For me, and this might actually end up being my game of the year, Planet Coaster. I just started playing it last night.
Oh yeah.
And I fucking loved Roller Coaster Tycoon as a kid. Played so much of it. Planet Coaster, it feels in many ways like the classic Roller Coaster Tycoon games. And apparently, I mean, it's the people who worked on Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 who are making this game. Whereas the people who worked on Roller Coaster Tycoon World apparently made a shitty game because they've never played a roller coaster game before.
Real quick on that one, are they? Do you know if they're doing DLC or are they doing microtransactions?
So far, neither.
Oh, okay.
I think they're going to do DLC eventually, but so far it's just they just released a massive free update.
Good.
It seems like they just don't want to, just poison the well on the whole roller coaster thing because the Tycoon games have been bad for a while.
Yeah, and the only reason I was mentioning that is Frontier. They made Elite, which I love. They're very, very, very good about pushing out free content, and it's good to hear that that's extending over to Planet Coaster.
Yeah, and they've allowed a lot of user generated content too. So they're really hoping this game has a long tail, I'm assuming.
Good.
So yeah, I messed around with it a bit last night. It's excellent. The coaster builder is a little awkward for me because I'm so used to the old piece by piece method from Roller Coaster Tycoon. But other than that, I think it's an excellent game from the couple of hours I played, and I hope I'm going to enjoy it some more.
Cool.
All right, so we've talked for a long time.
We sure have.
It's time to call this podcast to a close. Thank you for joining me on this marathon of a podcast to close out the year. We're going to be back in 2017 with with more discussion and hopefully more fun stuff. Thank you all for joining me. Ben, Science is Bad, Kappa. We'll see you guys in 2017.
Yeah. See
Thanks
you.
for having me.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks.
And by the way, just one last thing. If you want to check out the podcast, website, avocadogamescast.tumblr.com. And we'll put up a link dump so you can fact check all our nonsense. All right.
Later,
Good
guys.
night or good afternoon to everybody.
Yo,
Cool.
bye.